I just meant that some people like go through a lot of effort to edit stuff out. If I make a mistake, hey, I make a mistake. You know, whatever. I mean, I don't claim to be infallible.
You can also share your screen if you wanted to share a PowerPoint. It's up to you. There's a share screen button. The way it works, as I explained earlier, is so the viewers can raise their hands, and then I will promote them to panelists to go back and forth with you.
Okay.
Different issues that they want to raise.
Sounds good.
So on Facebook, we have 64 interested and 42 going, so I wonder if that will actualize.
Hope so. I think there was the problem, I think, is they didn't click the About section. If you just read your thing, it just says like your name. It doesn't say any info. They have to click the About. At least I know for me, I got confused too, because you look at the, like, where's the info, and hit About. Oh, there it is.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah, that's a Facebook glitch. Yeah, there's a bit of confusion as to, because people were saying, sorry, I looked too far away. I'm like, yeah, it's online.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was thinking. Well, of course, and I'm not flying to England.
We have 11 here so far, so we can wait another maybe 10 minutes.
Cool. How many do you usually have?
On a poor night, we might get a dozen. On a good night, we might get 20 or so.
Cool. Is that what that means down there, chat 10?
Oh, and I see Zachary Moore is in the audience. You know Zachary Moore, David? He's a well-known atheist biologist in Texas.
Cool. Sorry, sorry, I didn't know the name, but I'm not super affluent with every single person that's an atheist.
Yeah.
Unlike some atheists, I don't read a lot of atheist books. I don't watch a lot of atheist videos. I don't read a lot of atheist content. Not that it doesn't have value. It's just that how I approach atheism a lot of times is a little bit different than other people, and I just do what is right to me.
Zachary says, I'm not as well known as you might think. I try to keep my profile pretty low normally. Yeah. Zachary's pretty sharp, I think.
Oh, a lot of us atheists are pretty sharp.
A lot of us theists are very sharp, too.
There are.
Yeah, he says, partially because I spend much more time with Christians than the average atheist. Well, we probably spend more time with atheists than the average Christians, because we invite atheists such as yourself to talk to our group.
Well, I do agree that it's a good thing to know where people are coming from, because, I mean, otherwise then you're like beating a straw man.
Yeah, I think it's much it's much better to hear it from the horse's mouth rather than it's fine to represent a view yourself if you can do it accurately, but it's much better to get someone who actually takes that view, come and present on it to your group so that you can educate and yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm all about, is education.
Yeah. What's your background in academically?
Psychology.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I actually got into it to be a drug and alcohol counselor because because I've been sober from addiction to drugs and alcohol. So I actually did it because I wanted to like help the world, help people.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
Yep. I used to be a truck driver.
Hmm.
Yep. Traveled to every single state in the United States and 4 provinces of Canada.
Wow. People can actually phone into this as well. We have one phone caller on the line as well.
Awesome.
Yep.
And I definitely want to make sure all the viewers or whoever knows that I do not represent all atheists. No atheist does, but I particularly have harsher views than some people that are atheists. I'm not an accommodationalist. I have no desire at all to work with religion. Zero. None.
Okay.
So some atheists do. I'm completely an anti-accommodationalist. I don't feel there's anything to accommodate any more than I feel I need to accommodate the Ku Klux Klan. I don't respect their views, and I don't think that they need to be eradicated. As far as I would allow people to have their rights to believe things that are ridiculous, but I would want to do nothing to work with them. I wouldn't do a community fundraiser with them. I wouldn't, clean up a park with them. There's nothing I would do with them. To me,
you wouldn't do something with a religious organization at all.
If they were doing something good, it's possible that I would, but likely also possible that I would not, because I really find anything they do is always going to be bent to me towards the corruption of the mind.
Okay.
I just personally, I even tried to work at a Catholic or pseudo-Catholic organization for children. It was just supposed to be to teach children, after school and education and college, and they gave them free food. Thought that was all great, but they forced them every week to learn religion, and I tried to stand it. I couldn't stand it. I just felt like their goal should be just to help. If it was just to help, really, as they say, that wouldn't bother me as much, but it's not. It's really about an opportunity to get them in there and indoctrinate. It's vile to me. I didn't go there and try to indoctrinate anybody into atheism. I mean, if we're going to be helping kids, we should be helping kids for the value of helping kids, not for anything else. It has a value to me all in it to itself. But like I said, I don't speak for all atheists.
And of course, there's a spectrum, I think, of atheists, and there's also a spectrum of Christians, and not every Christian has the same motivation in doing what they do, just as not every atheist has the same motivation in doing what they do. So I think it's a danger to lump all atheists or all Christians or what have you together under one umbrella and say, well, that's atheists or that's Christians or that's Muslims or what have you, because there's such diverse communities.
Well, I would say that the word you use is an incorrect word. You said dangerous. It's not dangerous. In other words, if I were to cut out a whole segment of society, it's not dangerous. I'm just saying I don't want to work with you. I also don't want to work with people that were child molesters. It doesn't mean that it's dangerous that I don't want to do that. So I disagree with your word use.
Okay.
I mean, you could say that you think that it would be beneficial, and it's lacking benefit to not be involved.
Yeah, what I meant was that it has a likelihood of causing damage, of causing harm to categorize people under one umbrella, because you're going to misrepresent, because you're going to say that it's like saying that all Muslims are suicide bombers or all Muslims are terrorists, which of course is not the case.
But I feel that you're doing equivocation, because you're trying to attach something I did not say. I did not say all Christians are dangerous.
No.
I said I don't choose to work with them because I know the core fundamental motivation is the belief.
Yeah, I didn't say that you said that Christians were dangerous. I said that it's dangerous to categorize all Christians or people of any particular worldview under one umbrella and say, well, that's it's normative for all Christians or all atheists or all Muslims or what have you, because people are very diverse and people have different motivations for doing what they do. So I just don't think that this is prudent to generalize like that personally. But yeah.
Well, see, you said prudent. That's a different word than dangerous.
Okay.
Words matter. To me, words matter a lot. And the words we use actually, we add motivation to things by words.
Cool. So maybe we can start if you want to. Do you want to maybe tell us, just give us a little bit about, just for those that, by the way, those that are tuning in for the first time, this is the Apologetics Academy weekly webinar. And if you want the URL where you can find out more upcoming sessions, I'll put it into the chat window here. Apologetics-academy.org. And if you click on online apologetics training, you can get a listing of the upcoming sessions. We do this every week, and we bring in a different speaker, different apologist or scholar or academic or thinker or writer, and get them to present on their ideas. And then we have an open floor Q&A, and everyone's welcome to participate in the Q&A or just simply listen anonymously if they would prefer. If you would like to ask a question of Damien, you can ask it by pressing the raise your hand button, and then I will, during the Q&A, promote you to panelists to have the opportunity of going back and forth with Damien, our guest speaker for this evening, and you can have your go at either asking a question or making a comment or expressing disagreement or whatever you want. There's also a chat window where you can type in comments there, and if you would rather ask a question anonymously, you can press the Q&A button and then submit a question to us that way as well if you'd rather not engage your audio and video. So, Damien, do you want to tell us about who you are, your background, why you're an atheist, how you became an atheist perhaps, and Axiological Atheism? It's all yours.
All right. Hi, I'm Damien AtHope, and I'm an Axiological Atheist, which real quick I'll just say is basically a value theory or a value science atheist. So anyways, if you don't know what value theory, it's basically a form of if you think of what's ethics, what's before ethics is basically your value structures that you use to motivate, support, and build and categorize your what you think is ethical. And as far as about my life, so I was raised in a fundamental this Christian background, especially before I was 13. I was raised in a Christian cult, and it's called the Local Church, and it's by Witness Lee, and it basically is almost like a form of closest regular religion to it would be probably Jehovah's Witness. It's kind of like that. Don't celebrate any birthdays. Don't celebrate any holidays. We didn't do sports. We didn't watch TV. We didn't listen to the radio. Well, one day a week we would for an hour we'd watch Mutual of Omaha, but that was it. And the TV was in my dad's closet in his bedroom. And my dad was very, very strict in that. In fact, my mom had a car to go to work, and he actually pulled the stereo out of her car so that she wouldn't be tempted to accidentally listen to something that wasn't Christian. And it's just the way that my whole family was. There was a lot of abuse. I suffered neglect. I suffered from being starved. I was spanked. I had my tailbone broken. My dad hit me with a 2x4. And he was all about, fear God was to love God. And as a child, I never doubted God. I always thought that my parents were just had at least my dad especially, had a very weird version of Christianity. I thought that maybe his version or how he was portraying it was absolutely false. And my mom, when she divorced my dad about 7, and she became an evangelical Pentecostal non-denominational Christian, the kind that sings in tongues and dances in the aisles. And I also thought that was a very bizarre form of Christianity. I tried to speak in tongues one time, just was I was trying. My parents, you're a child, your parents tell you, do this, believe this. I tried. I could not get that speaking in tongues. But I never doubted God, ever in my entire life, until I was 36. So my whole life, I believed in God, but I had a lot of abuse. So because of the abuse, I ended up, especially in Southern California, drugs were available. I became a drug addict and an alcoholic. At 15, I had my heart stopped from smoking crack. At 17, I had liver failure, and I went into rehab. And in the rehab, I got sober. Once I got sober, they said that we needed to go to Alcoholics Anonymous. When I went to Alcoholics Anonymous, they started talking about higher powers and God, and I already believed in God, so that wasn't that big of an issue. And it actually made me end up becoming more Christian in Alcoholics Anonymous. So when I did that, I started becoming more interested in the knowledge, because as a kid, my parents felt like had been pushing on me. So I went and got the NIV Bible, and I read the whole thing. Well, actually, I listened to it on tape. I was a truck driver, but same difference to me. But I listened to it on tape as I was driving the trucks around the United States. And it was really profound to me to listen to it, because there was a lot of stuff that I didn't really know. And then I ended up also feeling that, because I would hear some people, oh, well, you have to read it in the King James Version. So I thought, okay, maybe that's better. So I got the King James Version, and I listened to all of that. And I also bought an onion paper Bible that was real thin and stuff. It was like $150 or something. So proud of it, and I just would read it all the time. And for me, I just never doubted. I didn't have any friends that were atheists. I didn't even know what an atheist was. I never really questioned. I thought things were odd, but I felt like the Bible was true. It had to be true. I was told it was. And so I just believed absolutely everything the Bible said. And anything that was presented, I just didn't believe, because the Bible was correct. And I just thought that some people that were Christians just did it in an odd way. So, anyways, when I was a truck driver, I ended up started training other truck drivers. When I started training other truck drivers, I started realizing I had an aptitude to teach people, and I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed seeing people flourish and learn things. And I was also, sober. So I was about 18 years or something sober, and I also had injured myself in a truck accident. And I thought, well, I can do something a lot less, physical than I'm doing now. I can become, a drug and alcohol counselor, because I really wanted to help people, and I've been sober for a while, so I'll be able to, relate to them and help, them get better. And so I started taking college courses, and that's really when it started for me to start doubting God. Especially the first thing that in biology learned that everybody basically starts out as a female or a default of intersex, neither female in a sense or male. But everyone has an X, and an X is all you need to make a female. And that, to me, that started me doubting, not God, but started me doubting that the Bible was correct. That it had the sequence of reality, correct. And because I'm thinking, well, if we all come from a man, from Adam, how come when it comes to the chromosomes, it's the other way around? We all come from female. It started seeming odd to me. Something's not right. And of course, I had cognitive dissonance. I didn't want God or the Bible to be wrong. I just feel, well, maybe maybe something's just inaccurate. It's the Old Testament anyways. It's not the New Testament, and Jesus is still true. But then I was told, because I was going into the addictions field and I wanted to be an addictions counselor, it would be most beneficial for me to actually learn about other world religions. Because in a sense, even though Alcoholics Anonymous says, oh, you have to have a higher power, it doesn't distinctly say it has to be the Christian Jesus higher power. So I didn't want to take the class. It's so weird to me now. It's like I didn't want to learn about other religions. But I actually knew nothing. I mean, if you had asked me to label, or tell you 5 religions off the top of my head, I couldn't have done it. I can tell you 10 now easily. And more than that, probably. So when I took this class, it was so funny. I knew that all the religions that I was going to be presented were wrong. Even though I had not heard one word of them, I just knew they weren't Christian, so they were wrong. Although I think about it now, how did I even know Christianity was right? I just, from what, luck of birth? How lucky I was that I was taught the one true religion and everyone else is born into a religion is wrong. But anyway, so as I started doing the classes, and it was really irritating to me, I actually hated learning stuff about other religions. Because I felt like it was just filling my mind with, nonsense. But the more I started learning, I started seeing, man, there's really a kind of a common pattern. That they all say that their way is the true way. Their morality is the true morality. Their way to the afterlife is the correct afterlife, and only they know what the correct afterlife is. I was like, man, all these religions are wrong, but they're wrong in kind of a similar way. And my Christianity at the time was kind of the same as all these other religions. I didn't really see that it was doing that much different than the other ones. And so I started doubting a little bit. Still didn't really doubt God. I just started doubting Christianity. Well, maybe Christians don't have the right answer. It wasn't that I felt that Christianity was wrong. I just started doubting. I started going, well, all these are man-made. Is it possible that Christianity is man-made too? And then they told me that I had to take a class on the Bible. And I thought, well, shit, man, this is going to be the class that I'm going to get an A in. My whole life is being a Christian. I've read the Bible twice. This class is going to be the easiest class in college ever. And it was one of the hardest classes that I had in college. It was extremely hard for me. One of the reasons was it was hard to hear things that I didn't want to hear. And I had to write them down because we had to write papers on it. And they started talking about stuff that I didn't know. They started talking about how the archaeological facts and how anthropology and how it relates this to that and these verses. And they started to teach me stuff. And it was very hard for me to hear. And how the Noah flood is the same as almost as the Epic of Gilgamesh. And they started showing the tablets. And I started having a real problem being able to stay so strong in my belief of Christianity. I mean, it really started. And the class wasn't even like an atheist class. It was just teaching you different facts about the Bible. But when it did it started making me realize, man, I don't know real facts. I know all these beliefs. I have all these things I have faith in. But it's not matching the reality of the truth of the world. And what really got me, halfway through the class, they had a thing about Satan, and that is the one point right there. When I learned that stuff, I stopped believing completely. And it basically, they explained that Satan, Lucifer, the devil, serpent, all different things, not the same thing. And they showed with the verses how that could be so. And it blew me away, especially to me. I think it's Genesis 3, where it says the serpent is the most crafty of the creatures created in the garden. So it's not no fallen anything. That to me was I feel like I had never read the Bible. I remember reading that verse and being so shocked that it actually said that I called my mom up and I told her, did you know this? And she's like, well, yeah, but I guess I didn't see as much emphasis as you're making on it. Yeah, but that's a big deal to me. Because isn't it Paul that says that the angel fell into the garden and, tricked a woman? I'm seriously confused here. And then also they said that Lucifer, that word, the light bearer, had to do with the king of Babylon and was a mistranslation in the King James Bible. It had never had anything to do with Satan, the serpent, or the devil. And they even showed us that there was like this concordance, passage that explains that. The Christian concordance explains that. And then I had a Bible with concordance, so I'm looking through there, and I'm thinking it can't be in there. And I looked, and it was in there. And I called my mom, and again, because my mom was a fundamentalist Christian, and I said, "Did you know this?" And she said, "Well, I still believe Lucifer's the devil." I go, "How could you? It says, even in the Bible concordance, it says that this is a mistranslation." And she said, "Well, I still believe." I'm like, that right there started making me think. You're going to still believe when you're shown the actual facts that disprove what you believe. And I was thinking, I'm not doing that. I cannot, will not just believe things because I want to. And it was very, very, very profound to me. I started really, really thinking about it, and it was like I got a hot flash, like just almost like, to me, like an atheist born again or whatever. I got this like feeling over me, and because it was basically a realization that I had been believing a lie that I wanted to believe with no basis in fact, and then was being shown contradictory facts that disproved it. Just like it showed us that archaeology basically disproves the entire historicity of the Bible up until King David. It's just not fact. And I'm not going to believe things that are not fact. And I thought, well, if the Bible is going to be lying like this, my mom would try to go, oh, well, but we really got to focus on the New Testament, not the Old Testament. Yeah, but if the New Testament is true, Jesus came down and he knew about the Old Testament. If the Old Testament was inaccurate to Jesus, he would have said, this part is inaccurate. Don't follow this part. This was not true. Jesus never said that as far as the Gospels that are, written today say. He didn't say any part of the Bible was inaccurate. So you can't deny, at least for me, I couldn't deny any part of the Old Testament. How could I? Jesus never said it was false. And it really started making me go, you know what? Thus, even Jesus is false. It's all false. It's false because it connects to things that are false. And I was done right then and there. I went from full belief to in God, and I'm done. I was completely done. I didn't even know what an atheist was, though. So I remember someone asking me, well, if you don't believe in God, are you an atheist? And I said, I don't know. I don't think so. Doesn't an atheist, aren't they against God or something? I don't believe in one anymore. I didn't know what the word meant. So it was hard because you go from your whole life is all about this belief, and then all of a sudden everything that you thought you were basing your whole life on, you now don't believe in. I didn't even know what to do. I mean, I felt absolutely like empty inside. I felt like my brain had fallen out, or like somehow I had never used my brain. It was like showing me stuff that was right in front of my face I had never seen, never willing to look at. I was dumbfounded. And I started thinking, well, I mean, I need to understand stuff. So I got online and started talking to other atheists. But I quickly, got off of it because they're saying, well, this and that and about things. I didn't want to just believe again. I mean, I was even not sure I wanted to believe what atheists had to say. How do I know that they know anything? I mean, I've been lied to my whole life. I don't feel like I have this large justification to believe anybody. So I felt pretty frustrated because I felt like, man, I don't know what to do. I felt like I'm like lost. But of course, college was still going, and so that we took an ethics class, and I thought, oh, the savior, let's do ethics, morality, because at least I can figure out how to run my life, even if I can't figure out what to believe. And when I took the ethics class, they made the most, to me, ridiculous statement. They said, okay, everybody, we're going to go through, it was like 10 different kinds of ways to approach ethics. And go ahead and pick whichever, feels the best to you. I'm like, oh, excuse me? What? How can you pick which ethics are best? I mean, isn't it ethics? How can there not be like some that are more preferable and some less preferable? How can there be no standard at all? It just that sounded bizarre to me. How can that be true? And I said, well, certainly there's got to be some that are more beneficial and some that are more destructive. Otherwise, then how could we judge ethics in general? He said, well, sometimes we can't. And that also felt very uncomfortable to me. What? How can we not know? And they're like, well, you just do what's good. And I'm like, well, what's good? Because, I mean, if you ask what's good, not every single person in the world will have the same definition of what they think good is. So I felt really confused. But they also taught us about divine command theory. And they said that, that's pretty much what a lot of what the Bible is basically doing. That God that makes a law and tells people to do it, and then they just follow it. And I realized, well, at least I now realize that is nonsense. That, to me, was the beginning of me understanding ethics, was that there was a nonsense ethics. It was called divine command theory. The fact of someone just telling you something does not make it moral. And so I started basing it, but how do I gauge all these other ones that seem contradictory, that they can't, or not able to work together correctly? Because they taught us about care ethics and utilitarian ethics, and anyway, so I was like, how do we judge between, or what should we use between these two? There has to be some way to do it. And that's when I really started searching hard. They did not tell us in class about axiology, but it was me just having an absolute hunger for finding out how do we establish ethics. So I learned that there's things called meta-ethics. There's the ethics of ethics, and there's the evaluation of ethics. And so I started getting into how do we evaluate ethics, because I wanted to know. I don't want to just believe something because I like it. That just sounds like faith to me. And so I started getting into meta-ethics, and I said, well, meta-ethics, how do they evaluate the meta-ethics? Where does all this start from? What starts the motivation for ethics, or the contemplation for ethics? And that's when I learned that axiology, which is value and value theory, what you value, you then are motivated to see as ethical. And so I started getting into axiology. I started reading some books on axiology, especially as it related to psychology, because I still was planning on being a psychologist. And I really thought this was important for psychology. I wasn't actually learning this to be an atheist or to do anything in atheism. I thought that, well, if I'm going to be a good psychologist, I need to be caring about the patient. And I need to do what's ethical with them, and then I need to help motivate what's ethical for them so that they can do, more positive, pro-social behaviors. And so I started really caring that, because I didn't want to just tell them to believe me. I wanted to give them a tool they can use to actually find it and navigate the world of ethics themselves. So I started getting into axiology for that reason. And I read a book on Axiology, the New Science of Psychology, or something like that, by Leland Pelham. I can give a book later, but anyways, one of the things he said at the beginning really hit home to me. He said that ethics is too valuable to leave in the hands of philosophy or in the hands of religion. And I thought, wow, that's how I felt. That's exactly what I felt. That it is not right to leave ethics up to these people of faith. Neither is it right to leave up to people just contemplating things and not seeming to figure out what a standard is. And I was like, yeah, I really want to know. And so I after reading the book, he talks about how they did studies on axiology, which how people value judge things. That everyone does. They value wise, is this good, is this bad? And then there's also levels of it. How good, how bad, how much worth, how much, disvalue, how much disworth it has. And so it allowed me to start navigating these concepts. And using an empirical, study with people, they did it in, I think it was 8 countries. And he showed that people have these general things, no matter the nationality or background, they have these general ways of evaluating things. Then I read another book of axiology, I think it's called Answering the Central Question, something like that. Anyways, it's about neuroaxiology. That a neuroscientist took axiology and evaluated relating to neuroscience. And he basically says that our brains process things in value structures. That's how we actually were able to analyze the world. Is this good evidence? Is this not? Is this a worthy behavior? Is this not? Is this food good? Is it not? Should this family, should I be treated this way? Should I? Anyway, so it's just how we evaluate things in general. And it really made me realize that, I need to do stuff that as much as possible that's creating value. And then that also is what got me more into atheism. Because I realized that when I was in class for psychologists, it seemed like they were still too much on religion, especially on the addictions field, because I was still in Alcoholics Anonymous. And here we are praying to a higher power, and it's just, what? It's just nonsense. So I really realized that I had to do something, because it seems like odd that in mental health counseling or psychology, every other thing but addiction uses a medical model or a science-based model, except addiction uses, it seems like, the spirituality or the God model as the main thing. This is odd to me. Either something is true or it's not true, in the sense that if the God model works in addiction, then why doesn't it work anywhere else? And if the medical model works in everything but addiction, are we really assessing addiction correctly? To me, addiction is a behavioral issue more than just a psychological, emotional one. And so I really feel that it's like saying that someone needs to get over being obsessive compulsive, and they need to use the spirituality method. It's just, I find it to be, just unethical in itself, that the therapy is being done, with a spiritual model, which is not based in anything scientific. And in fact, the science is showing otherwise. So because of that, the error I felt in mental health, it was kind of hard for me to be super gung-ho about wanting to be a psychologist. And also just like some of the behaviors and stuff that they were doing, like they told us, make sure you don't record if you can, because you don't want to be taken to court. And I'm like, why would you be saying or doing any behavior in therapy that would matter if you were taken to court? Am I wrong? Shouldn't we be teaching counselors right behaviors, not hide the behaviors? I go, it feels like this whole class is unethical. I was very offended, because I started to grasp what really is ethics. And I really realized that, man, these people are doing stuff that is unethical. You're teaching people how to hide their bad behaviors. And I started doing a research, sociological research, because I also, I have a weird minor, in the sense I didn't have a minor. I had a major and a whole bunch of little minors, sort of. I had basically sociology and addiction, but I also kind of had education and kind of criminal, thinking or behavior or delinquency of children. But it's mainly addiction, I guess, in sociology. But because of the sociology class, I wanted to do a paper on the sociology of counselors, bad behavior. So I started looking into how often do counselors do sexually inappropriate behavior with clients? How often do they do sexual, maybe not fully have sex, but do just inappropriate behaviors? And when I got the stats on it, it blew me away. It's something like 93% of all marriage and family counselors do something that's probably inappropriate. And even the best, the ones with psychologists, I think it was 50%. I was like 50%. I mean, this should cause immediate outrage. I mean, they should have had a panel. Let's take care of this right now. This is horrific. Nothing. Just absolutely nothing. Reminds me of the Catholic Church. We find out that kids are getting molested. What do? Nothing. In fact, we do opposite of nothing. We hide it. Top of that, then we make laws that says nobody has to actually expose it. The complete opposite of morality to me. The same way I felt like the counseling field was. So I really realized that there's a bigger problem to the counseling field than just morality, though, because morality is attached to things to most people. And so I realized it was to me. It was attached to my belief in God. And that's probably the same reason why the addiction field has so much God talk. And to me, so much lack of morality. Anyway, so because of that, I started going, maybe I need to focus on something different. Maybe now that I understand this, maybe I should focus on trying to remove the God problem and trying to push the morality issue more and the axiology. So I started doing that. And the more I did that, the more I realized I needed to learn first. And so I started learning philosophy. I'm an autodidact when it comes to philosophy, science, archaeology, anthropology, history of religion. All that stuff I learned on my own. Axiology, learned it all on my own. So but I had a real hunger because I really wanted to know what is the truth, what is the facts, and the more facts I did, the more I started becoming anti-religionist. And the more I started realizing that the problem is so bad that people are so used to it, they don't see the problem. It reminds me of sexism or racism. When you look out really quick, you can go, oh, I don't see any. But the more you look, the more you find. The more you dig, the more you find. The worse it is. And I started realizing this is a real problem. The counseling field, because they have a thing that says, what's a delusional belief? Well, as far as counseling is concerned, as long as your culture that you're in believes it's okay, then that's not a delusional belief. So, which is crazy. They don't do that when it comes to like anger or depression, or they don't go, well, what does the culture think of depression? Oh, depression's okay? Well, then depression's not there. Well, if sexism is okay, then it's not there. No, it doesn't. Everything else except religion does not get a pass. But religion, complete blanket pass. Why? Like they said this one thing where they said this counselor or psychologist went to, I think it was Puerto Rico, and this one person said, well, this guy, we want you to see him. He's hearing voices and seeing and talking to the spirits. And then I believe it's Puerto Rico. But anyway, so he says, yeah, the counselor says, yeah, but don't you guys speak to the ancestors? He said, well, yeah, we talk to them, but they don't actually talk back. We don't actually hear them. So he says, oh, okay, so it's not what's normal. Yeah, oh, okay, then it's a dysfunction. Well, it's ridiculous. Anyone who's talking to other beings, that are not there is delusional. It shouldn't matter that your culture thinks it's okay. So to me, I know that counseling really has to become medical and not an emotional model. It's an emotional model to say, well, we don't want to label people as delusional when their culture doesn't think they are. Well, I'm sorry. That's like saying, well, culture thinks that smoking doesn't cause cancer. Well, their culture. So let's not call it cancer because they said that smoking doesn't cause cancer. So as long as their culture says it, well, then it has to be, we have to accept it as true. It's just, to me, absolutely unethical and completely irrational. And so, like I said, because of that, understanding that this was going on, it was offending me, seriously offending, my sensibilities. And so I started becoming more and more atheist. And it was shortly after that I started feeling more compelled to read about atheism, that I realized that there was a thing called Axiological Atheism. Well, I was already believing in axiology as a good method to understand things. How awesome that they actually have a term that was for what I did. And also, I forgot to say, when I first started being an atheist, I felt that I was spiritual because I didn't understand like how you explained that you had a belief in morality or a connectedness to the world, or I was saying that I was a spiritual atheist, and it's odd to me now because what did that even mean? But once I realized that there was a word that actually encapsulated what I was feeling and how I viewed the world axiologically, and then with an atheist understanding, that was me, man. I started doing everything I could to read as much as I could on axiological atheism. I was pretty unhappy that there's almost nothing out there. Most of the stuff out there was basically Christian philosophers, usually, basically using it as a put down to atheists. Not atheists that even knew that they were doing, in a sense, an axiological atheism thing. So axiological atheism, we go back to that a little bit, is axiological atheism is not, the word atheism can be a misnomer almost in a sense. Because an axiological atheist, let me explain this. So axiological theist thinks that not just that God's real, but that God is valuable. God is necessary for morality, and that human worth or any worth is dependent upon a deity. That would be axiological theism, in a sense. Then there's axiological agnosticism, which basically says, I do not know if there's a God, and thus I do not know the value of a said God. There's no way to assess the value of said God if they are valuable or not. Because I cannot assess the value, I do not know if they give value to humans or possibly take away value from humans. I do not know if they're important for morality or not important for morality. I do not know that if they give meaning to life or they don't. So an axiological agnostic basically assumes the position that because I cannot do it, I thus have to go to the default of not believing and not using that as a value source. And an axiological atheist says there is no God, and not only there is no God, it is not worth to humans, it actually is not necessary and actually hurts morality, and it actually, if a God were real, would actually remove meaning, remove worth, and remove value from human life and human endeavors. So it is way stronger than a normal atheist thing, because an atheist basically is just a conclusion that theism fails to meet any criteria to establish its accuracy. So that's not all that an axiological atheist is. An axiological atheist can be thought of as two strong points: strong values in humanism and strong disbelief, both together at the same time. And so, Nietzsche would say, God is dead. Well, an axiological atheist would say, yeah, you're right, God is dead. Not only is God dead, God deserved to die. That myth is harmful, and even if it was a real being, it should be then held accountable for crimes that it said it was done, like say in the Bible, that it's killed the entire earth. That any being that has killed the entire earth, all but for one little family, is a moral monster, deserves to be held accountable for these actions. So it is an ethical reason and a moral argument-driven argument against theism. But it also, in general, would also be somewhat against religion in general, because these are made-up things that people are giving way too much value to, way too much time to. It is actually robbing, humanity from its flourishing on its own, which is kind of what humanism is. That basically that humans can do things by human means, that a God, that holy books, that faith are not needed for this endeavor to happen. So that's kind of what axiological atheism says. It's just a little bit stronger. That if it was real, it's worthless and harmful. especially as been offered in the books. But also another point. If there was a creator, and the creator had unlimited ability to do whatever it wants, as an axiological atheist, would I create the sensation of pain? No, because pain adds suffering. So the fact that there's pain, see, and this understand too, there's actually bugs do not have pain. They don't have the sensation of pain the way we do. And there's actually a type of ailment in humans that you can get where you basically do not feel pain. And a lot of them don't live a long time, obviously, but there are ones that do live, long lives. It's just not necessary. The world could be none better. Or how about this? Pain only happens when things are bad. I mean, why do they, in other words, what I mean by that is that God could create a world where pain only happens when I stick my finger in a fire. But if I were to be tortured, it could just immediately stop. The pain stops. It doesn't have unlimited pain. The fact that how the world is designed as a form of harm and destruction. The fact that, just think, everything in the world eats something else. Whether it's a bacteria, whether it's a lion, whether it's a human, everything, whether it's a vegetable we're eating or whether it's that whole thing of such a grubby, disgusting way to process life. Why would you even need food? Why not just have people live? I mean, if you have unlimited power, you could do that. And then also, to me personally, things like the Christian God, especially like in the Old Testament, the whole nonsense of making a tree, putting it in the garden, and then when someone commits supposedly this eternal crime. But to me, this is a really an odd thing as an axiological atheist. What would a good parent do? Would a good parent put a loaded weapon in a room with two toddlers, walk out, come back, when the one toddler has shot the other one, take the little toddler and put them in prison? Or would you say that a court system would say that's not a good parent? That parent did something that was unethical to begin with. It's not the children's fault. It is the adult's fault because the adult knows better. And this is very important because God knows everything. So they know better. And the other thing is that before the supposedly Adam and Eve ate of the tree of good and evil, they did not know. So that would be like us today when someone who has a mental handicap, basically punishing them for the full extent of the law as if they understand what they're doing. Even in our court system, we understand that is not ethical, that is not reasonable. When someone doesn't know, it's like we don't punish a 2-year-old the same as we punish a 32-year-old man. We understand there is a difference because we actually apply rationale to our ethics, where what's offered in the book of lies called the Bible, the God is obviously a moral tyrant. The fact that he would do this and then hold them accountable is disgusting alone. The fact that every generation after that is held accountable for what they did is morally repugnant to me. Absolutely vile. It would be like if we were to punish, 10 generations later or 1,000 generations later, we were to punish someone for what someone else did. Like someone says, oh, well, all Christians, are good. We should judge them on their own behavior. Really? Just like your God does. How he judges everyone on the behaviors of Adam and Eve? Because that's really what we need to understand. There is a thing that we have called reason. This does not make sense. Even when I was talking, at the beginning, I was told that I'm an anti-accommodationalist. I don't work with people of religion. I don't have a desire to. And I was told that that's dangerous. Funny that you would say it's dangerous, because it is dangerous to believe things that are horrific. Like you saying, I can't hold every Christian accountable. Funny how you seem to let that be okay when a God does it. When a God holds the whole world, thousands of people, generations, so disconnected from Adam and Eve, but still, that is moral. That, in fact, to most Christians, that God is the perfect morality. You have got to be kidding. That is not even a bad morality. That is a horrific morality. That is what I call pseudo-morality. It is not even moral. And just think, what if Adam and Eve had not eaten the tree? What if they didn't? What if they actually were these good, little unknowing beings and they never ate the tree? As an axiologist, I would say, well, did the tree go away? So was it just one test? Was it just one test God gave? Or was it a booby trap that eventually would entrap humanity? So God set it up that way. Because if I think, what if they didn't eat the tree? The tree wasn't going to go anywhere. They were still going to be in the Garden of Eden. And so even if it was 1,000 years later, someone would eventually eat the tree, condemn all of humanity. So it's almost like God designed, to talk about intelligent design, this is totally an unmoral design, to design the booby trap of the tree of lies so that they can eat of it and understand the truth of what it is to be moral, and then condemn all of humanity for this act. It is just preposterous. Anyone who has any ethics to me and understands morality should be offended greatly at this story. If it is true, it is absolutely that God is an immoral God. There is no way around it. Thus, you either have to say the story didn't happen that way, or you have to somehow cognitively dissident, not understand what morality would be. It's like it has no connection. I would too, when I text some Christians, they say, oh, well, you don't understand, Damien. God owns us. He can do what he wants. Really? Is that moral? Is that a moral statement? God owns us. He can do anything he wants. So you're saying that what? God is outside of morality? If he's outside of morality, why call him good? And if he really isn't good, why call him anything but a monster? You're just saying that it's okay if he's a monster. Okay, I agree, he's a monster. So then we can hate him. We can understand he's a monster. We can understand that what he's doing is not okay. It really has to understand that we have to hold things accountable. It's like words, like using any word we want. Words make a difference. So, is it really okay that this God is allowed to be called good when it doesn't have good qualities? Because what's a good quality? What would be a good God? Just think, if you could invent a God right now, would you really invent the God that creates hell, that punishes, all of humanity for the sins of one or two ignorant people? Really? That's the God that you would create? It is. So I just think it's so funny when people ask, why are you an atheist? I can't help but be an atheist. And not only that, I can't help but be an axiological atheist, because to me, I understand what value is. So, I just think it's, and also I think another thing too is, let me explain axiological atheism. So the first stance of an axiological atheist is basically apatheist. In other words, it's almost like humanism does. Humanism says we're good without God. They're not, in a sense, denying God in humanism. Secular humanism does that more. But humanism itself just says we're good without God. In other words, we can do things and we don't have to resort to God. So in a sense, an axiological atheist starts with, in their own mind, not dealing with people, in their own mind, that this idea of God's and religion is just nonsense. It's not worth wasting my time on. Just go live your life, be happy. Just go do good. The second thing that you think is, well, as an igtheist or an ignostic with an I, is that the God concept is not a concept. It's just this empty bucket term that people put stuff in and they take stuff out when they want to or not, or they have a holy book that kind of gives a thing, a little starting template to this little empty box, and they put stuff in and take stuff out, because all Christians don't believe the same. You have the one true book, and yet you don't have the one true Christian. So you don't even have the one true conception of what God is from the Christian one book. But so you have this little template, and I realized every single thing needs to be proven. Every aspect of the nature, everything. But you can't start with, I know this nature and I go look for it. No, you'd have to look at the world and then assume that the only answer would be this thing. And doing that, you realize that there's nothing even to start doubting. There's nothing. It's like saying, well, a God at the most limited thing is a supernatural something. Right? I mean, let's live in. If you take away all the morality and the best, the good, the immortal and all that nonsense, it would have to at least be supernatural. And you look at nature, you look at science, the one thing that's been proven over and over again is there absolutely is no evidence of supernatural magic, anything. No prayers, no miracles, no nothing. So there's nothing to start filling this empty God box with. There's no magic, no mystery, no nothing. And every mystery that's ever been thought could possibly be towards a God, science has come along and found, nope, there's a natural explanation for that. And it's just, so to me, that's why an axiological atheist is an agnostic. There's nothing to believe. There's nothing to even doubt. There is nothing. It's just an empty term. It's like saying Stay Puft the Marshmallow Man, Jolly the Green Giant. It doesn't mean anything. Spider-Man. I mean, it's just something that people are choosing to believe. And then the next thing is, of course, that an axiological atheist is an atheist. That if they're asked, do you believe? No, they do not believe. So, but that doesn't stop there, because if you're an axiological atheist, you've made a value judgment of the God itself, or the God claim, or theism in general. Is that these things are harmful, they remove value from humans, and thus, an axiological atheist is also an anti-theist. And like I said, not that all of them have to be, but in general, an axiological atheist will also be an anti-religionist. But that is little more towards personal choice and not directly connected to what an axiological atheist is.
Great. Thank you, Damien. It was fascinating. If anyone would like to ask a question of Damien, you can raise your hand. There's a raise your hand button, or you can submit a question anonymously by pressing the Q&A button. We have a question submitted from Zachary Moore, who is an atheist. He says, does Damien believe that Christians are able to be moral, to make moral decisions? If so, on what basis?
I believe that everyone is actually able to, for the same reason. It's basically that they use their own rationale. Most Christians, to me, say that they believe in a God, and they say that God gives them morality, but actually they usually choose what's moral by what's basically dependent on society and dependent on their experience. But even then, they usually, like, let's say the Bible doesn't condone slavery. It doesn't say slavery is bad, but most Christians will agree it's bad. The Bible doesn't promote, in a sense, women's rights, but most Christians now would agree, that women's rights are a good thing. So they don't really use the Bible, to me, as their actual morality. Unless, to me, they're fundamentalists. When they're fundamentalists, they're more appropriately using the actual words from the Bible to support their beliefs in morality. So yeah, I feel like, of course, Christians can be moral.
Okay, let me ask you a question just off the back of that. You said that Scripture nowhere condemns slavery. Let me ask you a question concerning 1 Timothy 1, where the Apostle Paul writes, now we know that the law is good if one uses it lawfully, understanding this, that the law is not made meant for the just, but for the lawless and disobedient, for the ungodly and sinners, for the unholy and profane, for those who strike their fathers and mothers, for murderers, the sexually immoral, men who practice homosexuality. And then it says enslavers, liars, perjurers, whatever else is contrary to sound doctrine. And so is that not a condemnation of enslaving people?
Well, like Paul also talks about, isn't it slaves obey your masters? And that we're supposed to be slaves of Christ?
We are supposed to be slaves of Christ, but being a slave of Christ is different from being a slave of an unjust master, such as, for example, the ancient Hebrews had been enslaved in Egypt, and that was under immense, very, very harsh times.
No, Jews or Hebrews were not slaves in Egypt. That archaeologically has been disproven, so that's not a case.
That's a separate discussion. We'll come to that later. But let's finish discussing slavery in the Bible first. There's different types of slavery. I mean, we tend to retroject a sort of a Victorian era, 19th century Negro slave trade back into the
that's a bunch of nonsense, because the Bible talks about as long as you don't beat a person to death, if they can survive for I think it's 3 days, then that's you're not, even if they die after 3 days, that's okay, because as long as you weren't trying to kill them. So I think that it's just trying to throw a red herring. Yeah, how we understand today. Yeah, slavery is wrong. The term is a correct term for the time. To say that would be to say that the term was being mistranslated. It's not mistranslated.
Slavery in the world of the ancient Hebrews was where people would sell themselves into slavery in order to pay off debt and things. And so it was an act of desperation. It wasn't.
But there's a difference between a slave that was a Hebrew and a slave that was non-Hebrew, because the laws did not apply to non-Hebrews. And also, you could sell your daughter into sexual slavery. So I don't think that Paul's statement, maybe he was abhorrent to, since he was talking, maybe he was abhorrent to, the Jews being slaves. He's not abhorrent to slavery in general. Jesus didn't say anything about slavery being bad.
Yes, there's also a lot of things that Jesus didn't talk about, which he nonetheless presumably had views about. Now, I see incidentally that Sarah's in the audience, and I know she's done a lot of research on the issue of slavery, so I wonder if she wants to weigh in on that particular discussion. But let me ask you, because I had a number of questions concerning your presentation that you gave. You said that you started off as a Christian and then you moved towards the position of atheism.
No.
Did you lose your religious views first before you lost your generic theism, or did you go straight from religious theism to atheism?
Yeah, I went from a Christian. I didn't have a generic theism ever. I had Christianity. I said that I didn't believe in the Christianity styles that my mom and my dad were doing. My mom, evangelical Pentecostal, and singing and dancing and talking in tongues, and my dad, the Christian cult. I thought that those versions of Christianity was wrong. I didn't think that Christianity was wrong. I never had a vague theism.
Okay, so you never had a bare theism. Yeah, that's interesting, because it seems to me that the arguments for theism stand on their own merits, independently of the arguments for specifically Christian theism. And so it seems to me that even if Christian theism is shown to be false, then theism still stands on its own merits now.
Well, like I said, I already started with the Christian view that all other forms of religion were false. I mean, that's what most you probably have. That most Christians have, that all of the theism is automatically false. Christian is the only correct. That is what I started with. The same exact view. So when I stopped believing that Christianity was true, it wasn't like I was able to give a big support for other forms of religion. Like I told you, when I first realized that Christianity was false, and the Christian God was false, and Jesus was false, I did not immediately call myself. It was about 6 months till I was comfortable to call myself an atheist. I wasn't really sure. I started looking in it, but I didn't have some great strong belief that any God or anything was real, because I already, as a Christian, believe all their religions were false. I did go, actually, like I said, I took a class. I did actually look into other religions, not with a great thing that they were true, but just wanted to see, and start educating myself.
Okay, I mean, when I say bare theist or generic theist, I refer to simply the fact that God exists as demonstrated by natural theology, for example, the cosmological arguments.
Well, you said the fact. You mean your belief, your proposition, your claim. It's not a fact.
The proposition that God exists stands independently of the arguments for Christian theism.
And like I said, it was about 6 months till I fully felt confident to call myself an atheist after I realized Christianity and Christian theism was false.
Okay. And what brought you to the conclusion that atheism or that theism was false immediately? What brought you to that conclusion?
Well, like I said, I started understanding the relation that morality has, and understanding if there was a designer. Because at first I started, speaking of what you're saying, I started questioning after I left Christianity, I started questioning, well, is there such thing as a designer? So but I didn't believe it. I just started thinking, could this proposition be true on its own? And I started understanding stuff like the fact that 99 to 95% of all living things that were on the earth have gone extinct. If that is a design, it is an incredibly failure. Imagine a child's test comes and they get an F. You wouldn't go, "Woo! You made it! How wonderful! Perfect." And I realized that if it is a God, it's the most unintelligent designer. But if it's that, is it really a God? No. It's just ridiculous to me. The fact of that alone, and the fact, like I said, of understanding that there's pain in the world, and none of it could be there, and the fact that we eat on each other, and you don't need the theology of Christianity to realize that aspects do not match up, which would be any kind of a creative, intelligent force. To me.
Okay. I have more to say on that, but I do want to come to Sarah because she has her hand up, and I know she's very well read on slavery in particular, so she may want to comment on that. Get her up.
Yeah,
Hey, Sarah.
Hello.
Hello. I'm going to take myself off camera because I'm still just leaving work.
Okay, you can turn off your camera if you want.
All right. Hi. I caught the end of the discussion. You were talking about slavery, and I think I heard you talking about selling your daughter slavery, things like that.
Yep.
What's your name? Yeah, I'm just wondering. God is describing a situation. He is not saying this is what is allowed. I'm just wondering where you got that from.
You're wondering what now?
Where you got it from? Because I think you said that you're allowed to sell your daughter into slavery.
The Bible states that. I believe it's in Leviticus. I don't know off the top of my head the Bible verses, but yeah.
I think you're talking about Exodus 21. It's not, God is not sanctioning selling your daughters into slavery. It's just saying if a man does it, this is how the situation is to be.
So what you're saying is there's a moral way to do it, even though it's not God saying to do it. But God is supposedly the giver of all morality. So you're saying that morality happens outside of God? Or this is not immoral and God didn't want it, but God didn't condemn it?
If I can answer. God is describing a situation that was very, very common in the ancient Near East for people who got into debt to sell their servants, sell their children, sell themselves. So this is a situation that God is aware of, and He's saying if it happens, do you know what God was saying about if it happens? Do you know what He said about it?
Do I remember the exact verse? No.
Okay. So God is saying you can't just treat her like.
Could you read the verse
Yeah, that's a good idea. It's Exodus 21 verse 7. When a man sells his daughter as a slave, she shall not go out as the male slaves do. If she does not please her master, who has designated her for himself, then he shall let her be redeemed. He shall have no right to sell her to a foreign people, since he has broken faith with her. If he has designated her for his son, he shall deal with her as a daughter. If he takes another wife to himself, he shall not diminish her food, her clothing, or her marital rights. So he's talking about the woman. She's actually treated as a wife. She's a wife. He's talking about
No, it did not say a wife, because it said you could transfer it to your son. So if it was a wife, why wouldn't it say that no? See, I feel like that you're actually trying to give a moral justification for an absolutely immoral act. First off, let me finish.
Can I just correct you on one point? You've just said transferred to your son. It's not transferred like the father uses her and then he transfers it. No. It's saying
It's property. Yes, but it is property.
Which is normal in the ancient Near East.
That is equivocation to your morality. There also was people worshipped Baal. People also sacrificed humans. Are you saying that because it happened in the Near East, well, we got to be okay? The fact that Abraham was going to sacrifice his son, don't hold that morality accountable. As long as they did it in the Middle East, totally fine. That is not moral. That is actually being immoral in your understanding. And also it does say, like the males are treated, so the males can be treated differently. But it's still, the fact that it actually even classifies that any part of that is okay. It doesn't say this is okay, but it still happens. It says, oh, this is how you're supposed to do it. And Jesus never said that part of the Bible, that was totally wrong. That was not my word.
I hear you, but I just think you're misunderstanding.
I hear you, but you're not listening to me.
I'm listening to you.
You are making an excuse. Look, you didn't use God morality. You used an excuse. You said this is okay because other people did it. Wrong. If that's a morality, then as long as other countries hurt women, then we can hurt women. It's totally fine because other people do it. That's not morality. That is an absolute excuse. It is vile to me, and you should understand it's a non-moral statement.
Now you're misquoting me, and you're the one who said that I wasn't listening, but you're the one who keeps interrupting me. If you read it, it's very, very clear. When it talks about you don't send them out as the male slaves do, you're to protect her. This was kind of revolutionary in the ancient Near East.
Oh my God, even worse. Now you're actually, once again, you're using pseudo-morality, saying that selling a slave a certain way. You know what? Rape is okay as long as you use a condom. This kind of, that's what I'm saying. Religion is vile. It's making you a reasonable person, make an unreasonable moral statement. Nothing about the sale of a woman is reasonable. Nothing about it is ethical. Nothing. Zero.
Let me ask you a question. In the ancient Near East, when you've run out of your grain, when you've run out of your animals, and remember, this is not God saying this is the way it's meant to live. If you go back to the beginning, God is saying, if you do what I say, if you do, where is it? And there will be no poor among you, if only you strictly obey the Lord. This is Deuteronomy 15. If that's God's perfect plan, and He's saying, okay, the world is not perfect, and this is the way I'm sorting it out. I mean, what do you want the person to do? Just starve to death? This is how they did things in the ancient Near East. You can't apply your 21st century logic to the ancient Near East.
Wrong. Your God is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. No part of morality can be okay at one time and not okay at another time. The fact that someone didn't know something means they were not moral. They had a very limited...
I asked you, what is a person meant to do when they have no grain, when they have no oxen or any animals, and they need... It's like you do work for a certain time. It's not like the transatlantic slave trade where there's no end to the contract.
Do you know that, speaking of the transatlantic...
Can I please finish my point?
Yeah.
When people sold themselves into slavery in the ancient Near East, often, and you can look at the Nuzi tablets, you can look at many of the Mesopotamian tablets, usually there was an end date. I'm not saying that slavery was always good and that slave masters treated their slaves perfectly. I'm not saying that. But
so can you say it's bad? Can you say it's immoral?
Almost finished. You cannot equivocate your feelings, because I think you're being quite emotional, feelings with recent slavery. And bear in mind that people today, even till today, scholars cannot come up with a single definition of slavery, because in so many different eras and so many different times, it meant different things in different contexts. So your definition of slavery is not the same as slavery in the ancient Near East.
Okay, so you are wrong. I'm not equivocating. I'm holding you to a moral standard that is unchangeable, right? Your God's unchangeable. And you're saying that it's okay that they sold them into slavery because at that time that was common. But at this time it's common to watch porn. So does that mean that people that watch porn totally not committing any crime, not committing any sin. It is a sin in your own thing to do something immoral. You're saying that it's okay. This is a typical Christian argument. It's using pseudo-morality, non-morality, to actually try to make something immoral moral. But remember, what about the verse that says that you can beat your slave, and if they die within 3 days, you're not held accountable? That certainly is not some kind of indentured servant. And if it is...
Actually, it's, if you look at, let's see the verse that you're talking about. I think probably Exodus 21, verse 12.
I don't know. I don't remember verses like that.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I don't expect you to. Whoever strikes a man so that he dies shall be put to death. And when a man quarrels and one strikes the other man with a stone, when is 20:21. So when a man strikes his slave, male or female, with a rod, and the slave dies under his hands, he shall be avenged. But if the slave survives a day or two, he shall not be avenged, for the slave is his money.
His what? Money? Here is it. His property.
It says money. The translation that I'm...
Well, yeah. I heard before property, but whatever, money. What does money mean? Money is something of value.
I think you can say property. I think you can say property if you want.
Yeah, right, property. So property is not a separate person working under a condition of indentured servant, that they're still their own person. We're just working the time off. No, it's your property means you own them. And if you could beat someone to death and not be held accountable, then there's a special class of being, because any other time you commit a murder, it's a murder, right? Or is maybe sometimes not a murder?
You live in America where it's lawful to commit murder under state legislation. We have the death penalty in some states. So well, you understand.
Yeah, but I am actually not for the death penalty. But that's a totally different point. You're actually, once again, you throw a red herring about something that has nothing to do with anything.
No, you just brought up something. I'm just answering you. You understand that if the states that, if there's capital punishment in a country, that's the punishment and it's not murder. But I want to read that verse in conjunction with verse 12. It says, whoever strikes a man so that he dies shall be put to death. So this is not talking about slaves. This is just the laws for Israel.
Right. Except the law, but then they say, but the class of a slave, it's your property. So if they die not right away, then it's not falling under the same other law. There's a secondary law for slaves.
I'm trying to explain the parallelism. I can't say that word. I'm trying to explain how they're parallel. Is that okay? Whoever strikes a man so that he dies shall be put to death. When men quarrel and one strikes the other with a stone, I've just jumped at verse 18. With his fist, and the man does not die, but takes to his bed. Then if the man rises again and walks outdoors with the staff, he who struck him shall be clear, and shall only pay for the loss of his time, and shall have him thoroughly healed. So you have verse 12 talking about, verse 20 talking about slaves, and you have the earlier verse 12 talking about children of Israel. In the same, if you look at the crime, and call it a crime, in the same instance, you have the perpetrator. One is confined to bed, talking about the free man. One is cannot get up. You can have what's happened. Well, the free man will require medical attention. The slave will require medical attention. The instrument used, with the example with the free man, it's a stone or a fist. The example of the slave, it's a rod. The motive, moral discipline. The punishment, the punitive damage is loss of time in both cases. The compensation is medical attention in both cases. If they die, it's execution in both cases.
No, it's not execution for the slave if they don't die right away. No.
Exactly. If you heard what I said, if they get up, if they're confined to bed, then it's compensation. If they die, it's execution. And want to respond?
I just think it's ridiculous. Go ahead. So you're not using a moral standard. You're just saying that it is okay.
I still don't think you answered my question when I said when somebody has no food, when somebody has no oxen, no means of a livelihood. Yeah. I mean, and I still think you're applying 21st century slavery until the ancient Near East. Today, I will contract with my employer for my time. I will contract with my employer for other things. So I think
No.
much nicer now, but I just think that the way
So you're saying slavery and it was just work. That's all it was, just work.
I think you should listen to the anthropologists who.
I do listen to, actually, I do know anthropologists and archaeologists when it comes to religion.
I think you should listen to the fact that they cannot agree a definition of slavery because it's meant so many different things in so many contexts. I think you should at least look at that point.
And you would look at the point that the only context in the Bible is work. You're not going to accept the point is your own statement. So hold on a second. Your own statement is that there's all kinds of contexts. But you're going to say that the only context that the Bible talks about is the one that has all freedom and no slavery.
No. I didn't say that it's only work. Let me read to you Leviticus 19. When a stranger sojourns with you in your land, you shall not do him wrong. You shall treat the stranger who sojourns with you as the native among you, and you shall love him as you love yourself. For you were strangers in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. Let me read something else. You shall not give up to his master a slave who has escaped from his master to you. He shall dwell with you in your midst, in the place that he shall choose within one of your towns. Wherever it suits him, you shall not wrong him. That's Deuteronomy 23:15 and 16. It's different to modern day slavery. That's my point.
Is it though? Because it says the person is escaped. Isn't that exactly like the railroad when people escaped? So you're saying that they're being protected. Why are they being protected? I thought it was a job.
I
thought it was a job.
No, I didn't say that was the only context. That's you misquoting me. I think God saying you shall love him as yourself is very different to the transatlantic slave trade, very different to the Islamic Arab slave trade. I don't see that anywhere.
The Islamic slave trade. You know that the first slave ship, the nickname was the good ship Jesus? So yeah. Don't go Islamic slave trade. Christians were at the forefront of slavery in America.
Excuse me, do you know the dates of the Arab-Islamic slave trade? Do you know the dates?
The dates of what? The Islamic slave trade?
Yeah.
No, I don't know the exact dates, no.
Starts from the 7th century. 7th century. All the way up to Saudi Arabia only abolished slavery in 1962. 1,400 years of slavery. 1,400 years.
Hold on, no, but are you saying that the 7th century, those were actual slaves?
Of course.
But the ones in the Bible, those aren't actual slaves. That's what you're saying?
Again, can you show me a slave trade where it says, you must love him as yourself? Can you show me a slave trade? Show me anything in the transatlantic slave trade that has that narrative, or the Arab-Islamic slave trade.
Right. So the Christian that brought the first boat to Cuba, when he brought it, and the Africans died, he said, I can't remember exactly, but something along the lines that it was proof to him that they were godless because God was not with them and allowed them to die on the voyage over. He was totally comfortable.
Okay, so that's individual speaking. My authority is the Bible, and my example.
The Bible is not authority; it's a book of claims that are unfounded and are not historical.
In your opinion,
I can send you a document. There's a whole book that was written called "Uncovering the Bible," and it has to do with an archaeologist in Israel that was actually an Israeli. And he went to Palestine, he went to Egypt, he went to Jordan, he went to Syria, and he did the archaeology trying to prove Judaism, realized he actually became secular, that it was all false. There's no evidence for it. Absolutely none.
Okay, I'm interested in archaeology, so I wouldn't mind if you send that to Jonathan, and I'm sure Jonathan
I will
can disseminate it.
Yeah.
But I think we've gone around the slavery issue, so thanks for sharing, and thanks for dialoguing with me.
No problem.
Vladimir Sizik had some additional comments to make on slavery. I've just unmuted Vladimir. Do you have a comment, Vladimir, on that topic?
Tara pretty much addressed everything that I wanted to say.
Oh, okay.
And I wanted to say that Damien first claimed that it was sexual slavery, but that was dropped, I think.
I didn't drop it. It is sexual slavery. Selling your daughter is sexual slavery. Absolutely.
How is it sexual slavery?
Selling your daughter into sex is sexual
Where does
slavery.
it say
How
that?
is it not? So if I sold my daughter today, you would call that, what, just marriage? It's sexual slavery.
Where does it say it's sexual slavery?
It says that she's going to be a sexual thing to marriage, and if he defiles her, which is sex, that he can't then transmit her later and take away her property. It is sex, and it gives her to her son. What else is he doing? He's giving to she. In other words, she has no right to her sexual body. You asked me a question. She has no right to her sexual body, correct? Her father can give her sexual body to others. Then even in that, the person he gave her to, he could give it to his son, so he could then transmit that sexual thing onto her son. Once again, she has no say. If that's not sexual slavery, then you need to maybe rethink of what you think sexual slavery is.
No, what it actually says is that he can give her to her son in marriage and must treat her as her daughter. So her owner must treat her
yes,
as
right, her owner, exactly. You said the correct word, owner. Her owner,
yes,
so she didn't choose to get married, correct? She was given from her father out of not choice, and then the father of the person she gave to can then give it to the son. So once again, she has no choice. It doesn't say if she likes it, if she wants it, if she agrees. No, it doesn't really matter. It is sexual slavery. Absolutely. I didn't let that go. Any moral person should be seriously offended if someone says that giving your daughter without her consent to people is not sexual slavery. How about that disgusting thing that a daughter is supposed to marry her rapist? Once again, seriously disgusting morality that you should actually... It's ridiculous. Or pay the father some money for her virginity because she's property to the father.
Anything, Brother Vladimir?
So, Damien, you have said, well, she has no say in it, and it's absolutely slavery. Well, you see, Damien, as a slave, she was probably sold because she was in a very bad financial situation.
What does that mean?
To the son is very beneficial for her. I don't see how she would be against it if she's actually getting outside of slave relationship and is becoming an actual part of the family, Damien.
Okay, so you think it's ethical. Hold on a second. Forget about the past. You think it's ethical at any time to sell your daughter without her choice to other people? You think that's fine? You're trying to make an excuse. Well, if they're poor, if they're in need,
your daughter, and if you cannot care for her, then do you think that selling her into that sort of slavery, which is way different than the sort of slavery that you have in your mind, I think it's definitely fine.
So it's ethical. It is ethical to sell someone against their will into slavery as long as you're poor. Is that what you're saying?
If you cannot feed her, absolutely. In that sort of slavery, obviously not.
You know what? That offends me. That seriously offends me.
In your mind.
I find you to be an immoral person. That offends me. Seriously. That's disgusting.
Let me ask you this question. What is your picture of slavery in your head, if you could describe it for me?
What's my picture of slavery? I don't understand what you're trying to classify a thing. The person being sold against their will to as property to someone else. Their daughter being property, another person being property, your son being property, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's not really that to me that complicated. Someone is
against your will.
What's that?
Where does it say against her will, against your will?
Let's see. If it doesn't care about her opinion, and it says a father can do it, it's not saying that her will even matters. Does it not?
Say it doesn't care about her opinion?
If it says the father can do it, who controls your sexuality? Your father or you? You do. So anybody, in other words, it's rape. Like I said, rape. Rape is anyone doing something without consent to another person.
Sarah is not asking you, if the father has say in it. Sarah is asking you, where does it say that the daughter herself doesn't have any say?
Because it doesn't say that it even matters. The father makes the choice, and then it says the other man makes the choice for the son. Tell me where it says anything that the daughter is even acknowledged, that she chooses.
So you're making an argument from silence.
And you're making an argument that selling someone's body is an ethical thing.
I'm relying on the fact that it says that you must love them as yourself. Like, God has a clear motive, and is telling people that you must love them.
And there's people that would rape someone that would say that they love them, and that's why they're raping them.
Damien, what I'm saying in terms of God's character, I can support by scripture. What you're saying, that she had no choice, that nobody ever asked her, you can't support. This is a presupposition you have in your mind.
So when it says that the father can do it, and it doesn't mention the daughter, that you're saying that ethically leaves it open that the daughter can choose. Really?
Damien, can I ask you something?
What?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Sarah. I just want to nail this down. Have you ever read somebody like Professor Douglas K. Stewart's sort of understanding of case law or casuistic law in Exodus and what it means in its original setting when a father allowed his daughter to actually work and sort of in that setting?
Have I read case law on it? No.
Yes, basically what I'm asking is your definition according to the time and day in the book of Exodus, and sort of the definition for case law and its definition of slavery. If you look, for instance, at an authority, like I said, like Douglas K. Stewart, that looks at...
Is it a Christian authority?
Unfortunately not, sir.
Oh, it's not a Christian. So it's an atheist or from another religion?
I'm absolutely not sure of his conviction or his religion. All he's basically getting at is that he's driving sort of the point that in sort of the ancient Near Eastern sort of understanding, we can see that sort of slavery is defined more as sort of servitude rather than, as you would
see now that sounds like a Christian apologetic for slavery, because Christians like to say that the slavery that they talks about, I have never heard someone but a Christian claim that the Bible states that.
You know why?
Because Christians have a confirmed bias to find it that way. You just said that it is okay to sell your daughter as long as you're poor. You felt that was totally ethical. I know, I understand. That's an unethical statement from a person that has a pseudo-ethic book to follow.
What do we mean by it?
What's that?
Yes, all we're trying to say, Damien, is if you study case law of Israel at the time, in your studies, have you ever found that somebody, and we need documentation for this, could actually render slavery as sexual slavery, first of all, and secondly, as...
Okay, so hold on a second. Forget the slavery for a second. You do agree that they had arranged marriages, correct? They were not, even in fact, isn't there, the Fiddler on the Roof? Isn't that about arranged marriages? Isn't that whole thing about that? To say that they cared what the woman thought? No. People would do the daughter's will for her. To me, that it was unethical then, it is unethical tomorrow. It is unethical today.
Well, my question is very simple. It is just the following. Have you found in your studies that there's sort of any other context than what I've mentioned, that sort of slavery is sort of seen in Israel's sort of context as that being servitude? And secondly, is there another argument that you can make that it's not from silence that can sort of show us that if a Christian sort of says anything, that it's not an independent speaker that gives an objective view to the actual historical setting?
Well, you asked more than one question there. You didn't ask one question. So you said you were going to make it simple. You didn't make it simple. You asked several questions. You asked, have I ever heard anything that there was only one kind of slavery? No, I did not say there's only one kind of slavery. But I said that Christians say that the slavery that theirs relates to is only one kind of slavery. That is what I said. And I said it clearly is not the case. If you can beat a person who displeases you to death, or almost to death, and it's okay because it's your property, then that is not someone who's working a job.
David, what we're trying to say is basically that there's two biases that you have to deal with as well. The first one is if somebody says from any religious perspective what he's observed historically, and he's an authority archaeologically wise, or maybe in a specific setting, that person shouldn't be discounted because of his belief. Because I can do the same. I can just say, Damien, because you do not believe, obviously you've got an agenda as well, and therefore we can just dismiss it. It is absolutely ad hominem.
No, I didn't say that's the only reason. I said because they have this thing. Christians go out with a confirmation bias to actually remove all the things that would be unpleasant that are in the Old Testament. Which is funny because Jews don't do this. Jews believe only the Old Testament. But listen what I'm saying. Hold on a second. Like I said, you asked a question. I'm saying to you, you asked me about anthropology. And I said, why is it that only Christians pull this tact? If this was true, who would have more reason? The Jews would have more reason to actually defend the Old Testament than you. But no, it's Christians who like to try to, just like the word rod. The word rod actually meant club in the Bible, in Hebrew. And it was actually a thing that was anywhere from 3 to 6 feet long with a big knob on the end. So the fact that I said, you said it, that's why I was asking who it does it. Because Christians have a bias to try to figure out how to make everything in the Bible sound reasonable. And I said, if it was true, the Jews would have more reason to than the Christians, since the Jews, that's the only book they have. If you could show me a Jewish person who says that it's not, that all slavery that what they're talking about was totally indentured servants, I would take that as way more credible than a Christian telling me. I'm not saying the Christian has to be wrong. I'm just saying Christians have a bias that doesn't match with the evidence.
Have we finished the slavery discussion, or does anyone else have any final comments before we move on to another topic?
Let's move on. There's a lot of other fun topics.
Yeah, sure. Tiger wanted to ask you, what does Damien mean by unethical? As an atheist, does he have an objective standard of ethical behavior, or is this just his personal opinion?
No, we have a standard. You said what kind of standard? Is that what you asked?
He asked, as an atheist, does he have an objective standard of ethical behavior, or is this just his personal opinion?
Well, see, right, sir, you said ethical behavior. See, and I would say that to me as an axiologist, all ethics are a behavioral condition. In other words, there's nothing ethical you do unto yourself. If you give consent to yourself, there's nothing you can do to yourself that is an unethical behavior. Ethics are what you do with others. It's an interactuary behavioral thing. It's a sociological thing that occurs. So how do we judge what sociological things? Very simply, we know what sociological things. First off, you start with everybody owns themselves. Everybody has their self-right. They have the right to consent. They have the right to understand that other people can consent. So it's a very easy standard. Everyone owns themselves, and that they have rights that are not conditioned on me. So if I remove them by slavery, or remove them by rape, or remove them by murder, I'm doing something against them.
Wesley isn't anyone with us. He has a comment or question. Hey, Wesley.
Hi, Damien.
Hi.
I just want to thank you for being on the program, speaking with us. I found it very interesting and, intellectually stimulating. I was interested in your, if you want me to call it a testimony.
Okay.
At the beginning, because I resonated with it because it was similar to my own in terms of going through a searching period, if you like.
Yeah.
Seeing certain problems with my worldview in terms of it being my parents' worldview,
right.
Sort of separating that out, which later led me to further study and grad school looking into issues of biblical theology and specifically archaeology, which is what I wanted to talk to you a little bit, because I've taken both. I've taken archaeology classes in the ancient Near East and in ancient Palestine and that sort of thing at both secular universities. I went to York University in Toronto and at Christian universities where I went to seminary. You mentioned, I think it was...
Uncovering the Bible?
Right, Israel Finkelstein.
Yes.
I'm just curious as to your thoughts on the fact that even in secular institutions, when you study the ancient Near East, you study the Bible as a historical document. And that atheist professors of mine had no issue or problem with using the Bible for its archaeology.
Yeah, but hold on a second. So no one's using it as a completely historical document. In other words, that statement to me is attaching a credibility that is not there. In other words, there is historical things in the Bible. Okay. But to say that is like saying that you're going to find the mountain of God. You're going to find Adam and Eve's tree. You're going to find the Garden of Eden archaeologically. So no one's approaching no one's going to look for a talking snake. No one's going to find, you know what I'm saying? So it is not completely, I never said, I said everything before King David is not historically accurate. Everything after that starts to have some touchdown of actual historical facts. The Hebrews emerge out of northern Israel. They can tell because they had Canaanite buildings that were very similar, but they found in their feces and their things they have no pig bones, and they have the pottery is similar, but it's not the same. And there's no evidence of any large invasion of any of the towns at the time or the 1400 BC. There's no evidence of it. So, and also, there's no evidence that anyone was in Egypt. I know you have to know that if you understand archaeology. And not only that, if there was, let's just say we don't have no evidence, if there actually was this large population, I think it says 300,000. Am I correct? I'm not super good with details without looking at them. But anyways, it's a very large population, supposedly of slaves that leave. The population of I think it was Egypt at the time, if I remember right, was something like, I think it's 400,000 or something.
Okay.
So if half of your population were slaves and left, you would be able to look at the archaeological record and know that everything would stop. I mean, imagine if all your workers in a company just left one day, all went on strike. You would be able to see that the fact would be there, that nothing happens. The temples keep being built, everything keeps happening, the society relatively keeps running, totally fine. It's very clear that it's not an archaeological fact. There's no facts there, there's no warfare, there's no stopping of all the construction, nothing slows down, nothing stops. And also, just like they found, when they actually look at who was building, like say the temples, it's all workers that were basically skilled laborers that were being paid and taken care of, and they were writing stuff in Egyptian.
Okay. So I know Israel, the author, Finkelstein is in the minority position in terms of a lot of things that he writes. Mm-hmm. Even in the academic institutions as a whole, he has the credentials behind him. I mean, he's an alma mater of Harvard. But he's definitely seen as a minority position in terms of his beliefs. And I mean, next week I have the opportunity to meet with a scholar by the name of Craig Evans, and I'm looking forward to talking to him on things like this. What would you say to scholars like Evans?
Well, I would say that we don't actually see. My problem is I actually am writing a book. It'll be out pretty soon. It's called The Tree of Lies and Its Hidden Roots, exposing the evolution of religion and removing the rationale of faith. And what I have done. What's that?
No, I didn't. I said okay.
Oh.
Yeah.
So what I've done is actually, I don't stop there. Where did religion start? The first recording worship in the world is South Africa, 75,000 years ago, a stone snake. Worshipped for, I think it's like 300 years. The next thing we find is in central Turkey, or actually southeast Turkey, is Göbekli Tepe, is the first human structure of worship. And there's worships of animals, and there's women, and there's not that far from that, there's a stone figure of a guy with a belt. Then 9,000 years ago in central Turkey at Kohak, or Catalhak, or whatever, I don't know how to pronounce it right, but is the first religious city in the world. And had 10,000 people at one time. These are all archaeological facts. And none of them are about Jesus. None are about Adam and Eve. So it's bizarre if somehow it was true when all the facts to the contrary show everything different.
Okay, but that neither proves nor disproves anything.
Well, it does prove. The Adam and Eve was true, and the God was true. God would have done stuff. There would be evidence of the fact. There's not. There's no. In fact, male gods to me come out about 7,000 years ago or something like that. Before at 12,000 years, there's female deities in animal worship. I don't think that they were totally deities. I think it's probably more like nature worship or something. I don't know, but it's certainly. But Egypt and Mesopotamia are the first ones to actually start getting the gods together, and they start marrying. It becomes pantheism. Christianity and the Hebrew religion is an offshoot of the religions of the time. They branch off of the religions that were there in Canaan.
Okay, but that's an opinionated statement. I mean, there are a plethora of archaeologists who are both Jewish and Christian, Bible-believing, who would disagree with you very strongly on that point. So, I mean, and this is what I mean when I went through my searching period and I looked at these different things.
So what would they disagree? They would disagree that the first worship was 70,000 years ago.
No, they would just date the Abrahamic Israelite religion farther back than the dates that you've been giving in terms of tracing what we now consider the Judeo-Christian understanding back.
Right, but so that they found in houses, right, in that area that they were still worshiping Baal. There's actually children even named in the Bible under Baal. And right. Supposedly that El in the Bible, right? The Bible is El, and El was the Canaanite god.
Okay, but that's highly contentious. We believe that they were worshiping Baal. I mean, the Bible talks about the strayed hearts of the Jewish people in that time. So that from my perspective validates what we see in the Bible with the people of Israel straying from the one God Yahweh.
What I'm saying is even there's not one God, because even at the time that there's in Jerusalem they have the Ashtar poles, and Ashtar was a goddess, and it was right. Worshipped alongside. There's even Ashtar figurines, but that the people were giving at the temple. It's not a and to me the early Hebrew I don't think was totally pantheistic. I think that it was sort of like basically God and then there's goddess. And then it goes into henotheism, where it basically, you see clearly in the Ten Commandments. Thou shalt have no other God before me. Not saying I am the only God, but thou shalt have no God before me. Not saying that even if you had another God is bad as long as you don't have him before me. It's a distinct statement. And to me, you can't really say the statement is wrong, because then you're saying that God, who supposedly wrote with his lightning finger, made an error.
Right, but in the same sort of statement, I agree with you. There could be an argument from the original languages for a henotheistic idea, but there's other passages within Exodus and Deuteronomy. I mean, the Shema, Hear Israel, the Lord is one, the Lord is God, is an inherently monotheistic.
Right, but you get my point. But the Ten Commandments are supposedly written by God himself.
Right, and then expanded upon in Exodus, Leviticus, and Deuteronomy, yes. Which we have these completely and wholly monotheistic statements that are said and completely dismiss all the other gods, which leads us and I'm not saying it stayed that way. I said it started and it evolved. It evolved like all religions do, and it keeps evolving. It evolved into more sects of Judaism, then it evolves into Christianity, and Christianity evolves in all kinds of sects.
You know that I think it's 18 something. There was something like 3,000 versions of Christianity, and now it's like 42,000 sects or denominations. Yeah,
Okay,
because
so just correction, that's a bit of a misnomer, because I've studied those numbers at length and written papers on them. In order to get that many denominations, you have to include everything from Unitarian cults like the Jehovah's Witnesses. You have to include all of the factions of Mormonism. All of the factions.
Correct. I'm not saying it's not.
Right.
I wasn't saying that Christianity agreed with them. I'm saying, obviously, Jews don't agree with Christianity.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. True. So I'm not saying anything incorrect. I'm just saying my point was not the fact of saying you agree. I didn't say Christians agree with 42,000 sects. Christians agree usually with 1 or 2 or 5 or 10. I mean, they usually are very selective on how, because I don't even agree that they only limit a few things. They actually limit quite a few.
Okay, but my point is it's a bit of a misnomer to say sort of the Bauer argument of Christianities because...
No, I said it evolved. That's my point. My point is...
Christianity evolved?
Christianity's evolved, absolutely. The views of Christianity in the 1400s are not the Christianity today, and is not the Christianity the 10, generations ago, and not when it started. The Christianity when it started, they didn't even have a cross. They had a little fish figure. Later, the cross comes.
I'm sorry. That's inherently incorrect. The cross has been used since the early 2nd century. We have documents from the early 2nd century. You're right. The ichthyo's fish was used, and I mean this is a bit of a rant from what I was initially talking about. But the symbol of the cross, the Christianity. So
the oldest Christian church is about 300 A.D.
No, that's not true. We have churches in Israel. We have churches in Israel that are from the 2nd century.
Yeah, but churches in Israel were not Christian churches. No, they were not Christian churches.
Yes, we do.
It's Judeo-Christian. And Judeo was Jewish people who were also practicing Christianity at the time. They thought it was part of Christianity. Dude, BibleArchaeology.com has stuff on this. Now, it ain't my, secular view. BibleArchaeology.com, look up the origin of Christianity, and it clearly says right there that the Judeo and Christian, at the time, that's where the word comes from, is all Christians were believed to be, in a sense, Jewish. So claiming a Jewish church...
I agree with that. I'm not arguing against that.
That's what I'm saying. But my point is, it's not a Christian church. Jews were already there. They already had the church. They just converted to Christianity. They didn't build a Christian church. The Christian church doesn't happen until 300. I mean, unless the BibleArchaeology.com is lying and they're fellow Christians.
But it depends what you mean by church. The word ecclesia just means community, right? So I agree with you. The first Christians were Jews. There's no argument about that. And they believed that they were following Judaism more.
Correct. Yes,
exactly. That's what the book of Hebrews is about.
And that's what I'm saying too. It evolved. That's what I'm trying to say, though. It evolved because they believed that they were following Judaism. That is not the opinion today. It's not the opinion today. I'm not trying to say that that was the right opinion. I'm just saying it evolved. It evolved. That's all religion's ever done. That's all it will ever do is evolve. It will constantly evolve. That's just the facts. So it used to be that women were not allowed to do stuff because Paul said, correct? Women were not allowed to speak in church.
No, hold on, because Christianity in the 2nd century revolutionized the way that women were seen, and it was initially called the religion of slaves and Jews because it gave them.
Yeah, well, I would, once again, it evolved. It started, I do agree, it started a lot more feministic, and then it became less. Because also, not everybody was towards Paul. Today, Christians understand Paul, but remember, Paul's books were written all before any of the Gospels. Paul never asked for any of the Gospels to read. Paul did not personally meet Jesus.
Well,
it's believed he met him when he was on the road and got hit by lightning or whatever.
Jesus. And Paul quotes Luke, so he quotes Luke's Gospel.
Right, because all the books of Paul we know are not authentic. Yeah, that's another known fact. Not all the letters of Paul. I think it's, the first 8 or something is Pauline, and then the other ones, a couple, 3 or 4 are questionable, then the other ones are absolute total forgeries.
That's highly debatable. Scholars don't agree with that opinion.
So you're saying that some don't, but you're saying some do. Of course, Christians can disagree with anything. So,
but that doesn't change the fact that
If it was a clear fact, you would say it's a clear fact. It's not a clear fact. You're saying some don't agree, but some do agree.
Okay, so we've been going on a bit of a tangent. I mean,
which I'm enjoying because I like talking about all this archaeology and stuff. A lot more than about the slavery bullshit.
Right, and going back to sort of, I felt that when you gave your testimony, your objections to Christianity, and I mean this not in a disrespectful way, but you had a superficial form of Christianity, and you were very influenced by superficial arguments. I mean, the whole the Lucifer. I'm not sure why that shook you as much as it did.
Well, also I said the serpent is the most crafty of the creatures created in the garden. It's not a fallen angel. It's distinctly says it is a creature. It is intelligent more than any other creature, and it's what God put in the garden. That God created it. So it says. I think it's Genesis 3. That to me was, I told you, more than Lucifer. Lucifer was a big one too. Heck yeah. The more thing I look, the more I start finding out this stuff is not true. Heck yeah, it affected me.
What do you mean not true? I mean, Lucifer is just Latin for morning star.
And
so I'm saying mistranslation in the King James version because they transliterated Lucifer.
But I'm saying I was told a lot of things, right? Not just one, many things about what the reality of the world is, what the Bible really said, and then when I learned that was not true, it started making me go, wow, what the heck?
Right, but with all due respect, I think you were too easily influenced by arguments that you didn't necessarily look into the scholarly opinions in the degree that you should. I mean, when I struggled through these things, I went to both believing and unbelieving scholars, and I searched through these things, look at the best, forget the rest kind of arguments. And I feel like
so you're saying that you kept theism for the same reason you're saying to me. You wouldn't look at it. You wouldn't look at it, and you still find the ones that fit yours is correct. So you're saying archaeologically. Let me just ask you a question. You're saying archaeologically the Bible is 100% God's word is sound. 100%. Everything is 100%.
Everything, yes.
I'm done talking. That's it, dude. You're done.
But here's the thing.
Then your statement that you have looked at all the facts is not accurate to me.
Right.
You felt I too easily, and I'm telling you, if you say that the Bible is 100% archaeological fact, then I know that your statement is also, if you feel mine's not valid, you too easily allow the facts to be dismissed so that you can keep faith.
So
you know what? People do all the time.
Hold on. What you're doing is you're inferring my belief now with when I went through that period of searching. Because during that period, I mean, I grew up in majority Muslim countries. So my background is as much in understanding Islam as it is in understanding Christianity. And when I went through the searching period, luckily enough, I grew up in a household with an intellectually inclined family where I had the Quran, the Bhagavad Gita, the sutras on the shelf just in the other room. So when I went through this period, my ultimate goal was to find what the truth was, because there's no use in following something that's not the truth.
Right. So you're saying that if you found something today that showed that the Bible was not inherent, that you would immediately accept that and move on, or would you say that fact can't be a fact because you know everything else is true? Confirmation bias.
In the sense that the ultimate goal is to follow the truth, and as Paul says, if Jesus is not resurrected, we are to be pitied among all people because we're following a lie. However,
but to me, I told you, axiologically, I actually pity anyone that thinks that a Jesus was necessary. The original sin is the reason why supposedly Jesus comes, right? But the original sin was set up as a booby trap against humanity by God, by design. I told you.
It's a very simplistic, broad brushing way to put it.
Really? So it's simplistic to me to think that I hold a moral standard. That
No. Listen, the way that you described sort of God's salvific plan and his the process of crucifying Christ before the foundation of the world began. I mean, to broad brush it in that way ignores 2,000 years of historical.
No, you just added some nonsense to the. It's very clear. If there was no tree of life, no tree of lies, right? There's no somehow you can eat this apple and then you can understand good and evil. If that wasn't the case, then there wasn't sin, correct? But if that didn't happen, there's not sin. Is that correct? Or do you feel this sin is still happening without that?
No, that's why sin entered the world.
Exactly. Exactly. So, but before you ate it, you didn't know it was inherently moral because that's the tree of good and evil. You did not know what good and evil is, correct? So, in a sense, you did something without the knowledge of morality. So God says, here's these beings that don't know how to understand morality. We're going to put something, and then we're going to hold them morally accountable. Not only that, we're going to hold all the rest accountable for what they do without knowing. It's an immoral thing. And like I said, it's very simple to if they didn't eat it, let's say they were moral, or let's say that they didn't choose to eat it. If they didn't, or their children didn't, or the tree still stays there. It's a booby trap. It's waiting. One person makes a mistake, eats the apple, condemns all humanity. Oh, now we need Jesus. Oh, wonderful. Jesus come to save us from the God that actually punishes us for other people's crimes. Wonderful.
God doesn't punish us for other people's crimes. We were punished for our own sin.
Are you not born with sin?
Yes.
You're born with sin because of the apple?
Yes.
The apple that God put there that was waiting for someone to eat?
But I'm punished for my actions.
No. All have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God, correct? Correct. So, wrong. No, what it says is you have to beg for forgiveness, and then your sin is absolved, as long as you stay Christian and stay to these truths. But basically, it's that you have to give in and surrender and choose Jesus, and then your sin is forgiven. Because if you don't, like you said, good action. So if a person did not accept Jesus, but totally lived a totally Christian life in every way possible, better than a Christian, would they go to heaven? The answer is no. Because it doesn't, your behavior doesn't matter. Your behavior doesn't matter.
Because no one is good but God.
That's a nonsense. How would you know that God's good? What qualities would it take for you to say that God was good? Better yet, you should think, what qualities would God have to do for you to start saying that God could be bad? If you would have two gods, one's a good God, one's a bad God.
Because here's the theological fallacy that you're doing. You're saying that God lives up to a standard that's good. That's not what Christians believe. We believe that
so he doesn't.
Inherently good.
How do you know that? What does that word mean if it doesn't have any standard?
And God is the standard.
And what is that? So you're saying there is no standard. Because you're just a logical fallacy, just throwing them at the wall and it sticks. There you go. So no matter what God does, so if God rapes, tortures, kills, murders,
he doesn't.
He can't commit sin.
He would cease being God. He would cease being God.
That's not. How would you know that? You said God's the standard. So if God's the standard, whatever he does is inherently the standard. There is not a standard. The standard is that God can do anything.
God doesn't do good. God is good.
Yeah, but how do you know that? How do you know that? And what would make him bad? What could God do that would be bad? Could he kill the whole world in the flood? Would that be bad?
But see,
no. Would that be bad?
This is an oversimplification, and it's
no, it's not. Yours is oversimplification. Yours said whatever God does, God is good. God is love. God is perfect. Although I don't know how to justify that, so I should just say God is God because I don't even know what I'm talking about. I just say good is some arbitrary word because whatever God does, no matter whatever God does, is still good. Can God be bad to you? Can he?
You're oversimplifying Christian theology to an absurd level.
Christian's theology is absurd in your statement that God is good without any type of standard. That is an absurd statement. Then there's no such thing as morality, right? Why say sin? Sin is a standard that something happens. It's an archery term. It means missing the mark. But that means there's a mark. Your statement is the standard is God, but God has no standard. So whatever the standard, it's divine command theory. It's not even morality. Whatever God says is the standard. That's called divine command theory. That's not even ethics. That's not. You're just saying whatever God says, that is the standard. There is no standard. It is a failure of understanding and a willingness to accept what morality can mean. Because when you say morality, don't say morality. just say God said it. Because that's all you're doing. It doesn't mean it's moral. It may not be. How would you even know?
Because God is the standard of morality. He doesn't live up to a standard of morality.
Correct. He doesn't. And I agree. If you were to have a standard of morality, God doesn't live up to it. And that's why I'm not believing in God. That's why I'm an axiological atheist and I reject the claims of God. It doesn't live up to any standard of morality. It can't.
That's like saying light doesn't live up to the standard of dark. Darkness is the absence of light.
But how do you claim this knowledge of what God is and can and cannot be without any way of proving that? So he's not morality. So Christians don't have morality. They just have God following. That's all they have. They don't have morality. There's no moral reasoning. It's just God following.
I'm curious. Have you ever read John Gray? Anything that John Gray has written?
No.
He's a philosopher and ethicist out in the UK. He's a very stringent atheist, and he's condemned the new atheist movement, basically because he says that, there's two John Grays, by the way. One wrote, Men are from Mars, Women are from Venus. That's not this one. The John Gray from the UK has written, and he said that, what the new atheist movement is doing, and I believe it's what you're doing as well, is that they've borrowed from the Judeo-Christian worldview in order to create some.
No. I did not borrow from no one's worldview. It is. I told you wrong. I say that Christian worldview is that God is the perfection, that there's such thing as sin. I don't borrow that at all. That is, see, now you're trying to actually make a straw man of my argument. I told you at the beginning
that humans have worth.
Humans have worth because we're social creatures. Because we have feelings. Do you have feelings? Do you have feelings of love, of anger, of hope? We have worth in a social. In other words, you said that trying to claim what light is. Morality is a behavior that is a social interaction between people. That's what morality is.
We're social creatures. We don't hold them accountable for actions.
And the same reason we don't hold people that are mentally handicapped, or we don't hold babies, even though they're emotional creatures. We understand it takes a cognitive level of understanding and development of the brain to be able to say, well, if I got a brain injury, you would hold me accountable. Because you would understand, even though I used to be, I now have lacking the quality needed to have morality. But that involves that you understand morality has to be an understanding. It's not a law. It's not a thing. It's a behavior. To me, it's a classification that's wrong when you try to make morality a thing when it's a social behavior. It's like saying love is a thing. Where's love? I can't find it. Well, of course you're not going to find it. How do you know when you have love? You know it because it's an experiential thing that happens in a social dynamic or relationship. That is how. To try to make it something more than it is, to me, is wrong. And I'm not a new atheist, by the way.
Okay, and
I would call myself an old atheist, because the idea of the new atheists that we're loud, we fight back. But Ingersoll fought back, so did Nietzsche, so did Socrates. I mean, atheists have always fought back. To me, the new atheists, what they should call them, is people that are accommodationalists. They want to be quiet, work with religion, agree to your statements, not be too harsh. I have no desire to do that.
Okay.
I don't have any problem with someone being harsh to me. If you feel that you challenge my behavior, my ideas, do it.
Okay, and I mean, this isn't my area of expertise. I mean, I'm early Christian textual critical issues. But I appeal to guys like John Gray because I see that I would argue that they're logically consistent atheists. Because they would look at ethics, and they would say ascribing worth to humanity is borrowing from the
he's inaccurate. You don't need to
describes that we are created in the image of God.
No, it does not. I don't appeal that in any way, shape, or form. I told you social interaction. Just like I told you, we can appeal to, reason, the cognitive development, because we know that when you have lacking cognitive development, we don't hold to the same standard. We don't hold a 5-year-old the same way we hold a 25-year-old. There is a standard that follows reason, the ability to cognitively understand what you're doing. In fact, in courts, they usually say, are they insane? Do they have the ability to understand right from wrong? But that means there's an understanding involved. It's not a law. It's an understanding of social reactions. This is how you behave.
Okay,
it's not borrowing from
categories from rationality and morality and ethics. Where are you getting them from?
I don't understand your question. Where do we? In other words, do you need to have an understanding of the full philosophical understanding of morality before you're moral? No. Because it's a social interaction. No more than you need to teach people how to love.
But so is morality objective or subjective then?
Is morality objective or subjective?
Right,
Well,
yes.
to me, that is a wrong classification as an axiologist. Because everything starts at the person and then irradiates out. In other words, you should do what's moral. In other words, if you have two people, you have someone next to you that's your wife and you have someone next to you that's a stranger, who ethically should you care for? The stranger's life or your wife's life? See, axiology says the next relation to you is the one you have the most obligation to. Just like a mother. A mother has kids, okay? And she has medicine. And there's 3 kids, babies, that need to have this medicine. But she could help 5 adults. Would you say that she's unethical for helping her children as opposed to adults? No one would. Because we understand, axiologically, the morality relates to the person.
Okay,
Just like
so
say what you feel it's ethical to feed people. Do you feed people in your neighborhood, or do you go to Africa, or do you go to India, or do you go to Iran? Do we have to? If we only fed people in our neighborhood, are we being unethical to the rest of the world? Or do we have an obligation, axiologically, relational to your actual biosphere? In other words, to me, axiologically, it starts at your biggest thing is you. Then your next realm of thing, which is your family, your direct, then your friends, then your coworkers, then your city, then your state, then your country, then the world.
But this all smells of subjective relativism.
It's objective in the fact of the relational. It's subjective to the person, but the person is not making subjective. In other words, the mother doesn't feed the babies and feeds instead the 5 people. She's not to be being ethical. Her job was to care about her kids. Not caring about your kids is not ethical because it is relational to the person. I find this thinking of trying to break it into universal objective, universal subjective is just nonsense. That's not how we actually relate to the world. It's not. If it's universally objective that you should help everyone, then you would help everyone equally, correct? In other words, people in Africa, people in India, people in England, people in America, totally equal. And you would say there's no such thing. That is a nonsense to me way of understanding. It's missing the axiological positioning.
We do have a philosophy student from Oxford University who is particularly conversant in metaethics. Josh, let me unmute Josh to have him contribute to this. Hello, Josh.
Hey,
Hey.
Damien.
Hey.
It's great to speak with you.
Thank you.
I'm afraid I haven't been here for the whole time. I've been on I'm working at the moment. I'm doing a kind of telethon at Merton, working in that, and I haven't been. It would be helpful for me to gauge how familiar you are with kind of relative meta-ethical positions. So kind of what's your background in meta-ethics?
Well, I follow basically axiology or formal axiology.
So you would say that. So for example, I say that torturing a child.
Well, first off, do you know what that is? Because there's no reason for you. You know.
I say that it's a fact that torturing children is, with no a better reason for it, is wrong.
No. I said, do you know what axiology is, the value theory, and what formal axiology is?
I'm not 100% sure on that, so I'm assuming it's some sort of objectivist morality. So you would say that
it's a realist, it's a scientific, formal axiology is scientific, it's realistic, it's objective, yes. Because what it believes in is not objective morality, it believes in objective value. That we can objectively understand value in relation to other things. And it understands it in 3 ways. Because it's more complicated than I'm saying here. I'm just trying to help understand. So it uses a value calculus and understands that there's an intrinsic value, there's systemic value, and there's extrinsic value. So there's not one kind of value.
I agree with that.
What's
happy with that?
Yeah.
I'm happy with that as a Christian.
Well, there's Christians that use axiology. So you can be an axiological Christian.
Wonderful. This sounds great.
You missed the part. I said that you can be actually an axiological theist. There's three positions.
Sounds great to me.
Well, let me explain it real quick so you understand, since you didn't hear it.
Go ahead. So I'm here for understanding.
Okay. So axiology is value theory. It is not inherently, in a sense, atheist or anything. So formal axiology, I would say, is close to non-theist, but still, I wouldn't.
I'm listening to what you're saying, so I'm just going to turn on the light.
Okay, so in other words, formal axiology assumes the position that realism is true, God's not proven, so we can only assess value of things that are proven or real to be true because we can't assess things that are just ideas. So
why is God just an idea?
Well, I don't know why I'm saying to you that how can you assess an idea as if it is real if it is just an idea?
But it's not just an idea. So for example,
I don't want to talk about that. I just want to real quick explain to you. So that's
go
I didn't want to go into a thing about because we can go into all this. I just want to because I wanted to run the same page, so then we can talk about it. So like I said, but there are theists that still agree with formal axiology. They just say that, well, not knowing doesn't mean no existing. So they just say, well, to me, God is real or whatever. So I'm not saying that formal axiology is automatically.
So let me just clarify. What's the distinction between moral objectivism, which I would define as the fact that there are moral facts and that we can know those moral facts, and what's the distinction between that and axiology?
Well, I would say, but let me finish what I said first before we get to that. I said, you want me to go back to the meta-ethics, but if you don't understand what I'm talking about, so formal axiology basically takes a kind of a non-theistic approach. Okay, it doesn't deny God, but it says that we can't assess it. Anyways, so there are axiological theists. Okay, an axiological theist, what that means is that not only that God is real, but that you believe that God is valuable, and that you believe that God is directly connected to morality, and that you believe that human meaning and value comes from a deity, and that we are benefited or better off in well-being because of a deity. That's axiological theism.
Fine.
Okay, an axiological agnostic says, I don't know what a God is, or if a God is real. I don't know if a God is valuable or not valuable. I don't know if a God is beneficial to humans or good to humans or adds to human worth. And so thus I choose not to believe because I don't know what it is. So I can't assess things. So I wouldn't worship, I wouldn't do anything because I don't know if maybe I'm worshiping something bad. I don't know. So it basically just steps back and says, I don't know. Axiological atheism says theism is negative. It is harmful. It removes human value. It actually tries to remove human morality. It tries to remove human worth. So and that's what I am. I'm an axiological atheist.
Wonderful. So I think, okay, fine. So I think it's a necessary condition of axiology, as you've spoken about it, that moral objectivism is true. I think that.
But they classify it as value objective values. You're trying to say that it's a moral objectivism, but it's value. It's objective values. So I'm trying to figure out how you're saying it.
What's the distinction between it? So I get one of objective factors, and objective factors is something that's true regardless of whether I think it. If it's Nazi, then it doesn't matter whether I think that Jews are valuable or not. Jews are valuable, and so that doesn't matter.
Right, but you're saying a value, so it gets morality from the value. In other words, it understands the value, and then from that reasons the morality. But the morality, in a sense, can somewhat shift, but the value doesn't. Because it depends on how...
I don't think it's as... I don't think there's a kind of massive distinction between the fact and value. I know this isn't particularly what I want to talk about, but in terms of... and I don't even think this is like a massive thing against axiology. I think that axiology can take this on, but in terms of... I just think that kind of axiology can take on that there are objective moral facts. So you would say it's a fact that humans have value. That's fair.
Well, but if they have value in a social context, not as some sort of a tangible fact in the world. In other words, In our relation to each other, a social relation, it is a fact in the realm of social relations. But it would.
Okay.
So
let's say I'm in this is not where I'm going. I'll go to somewhere where I'm going in a sec. But for example, so I'm a vegan. You might be as well.
I'm not.
You're not.
I'm not a vegan.
As a kind of moral objectivist, you should be. Huge amount of chat.
I didn't say I was a moral objectivist, though.
So,
I believe there are ways to get to moral objective morals, but I'm not a moral objectivist. How you're saying it, like I said, it's a social relations.
But we have social relations. Let's say, kind of Nazi Germany is a classic example. I don't use that because Nazism. I'm using that because it's an easy analogy.
That's using fine.
That. So when I say that German, Nazi Germany had a social relation such that the Aryans were in one area. Outside of that were the Jews. Outside of that were the mentally handicapped. Outside of that were a number of other people that I would say it is a factual matter that they were wrong to, and we judge Nazi Germany for what they did, or we judge same way we judge.
I would agree. I agree with that.
So let's say you're a
by the way, I can send you, if you send me a thing, I can send you an article that explains axiology, and it even talks about God, and it talks about how it relates to a person's belief in a God. It breaks it down.
So this isn't even to do with it. So this is moral objectivism randomly. And so what is it? You're in Nazi Germany today as an axiologist. What do you have to say?
Well, like I said, but
Japanese rapists.
It was unethical. It is an unethical thing because the humans have value. We have.
But they have value in terms of the social relationship. They're not in the social relationship. You're not. That has to. I was saying about how we choose one thing over another. It's a social. In other words, a behaviorism. Morality is a behavior. It's not an idea. It's a behavior between people. There is no behavior the behavior between the people in the Nanking rape is that Japanese men raped Chinese women. That's the behavior. There is no, unless there is a fact you're appealing to, there is no fact of the matter here unless, apart from, men are raping women. And that doesn't need to be wrong. That J.L. Mackie, for example, is saying that's not wrong. There is no fact of the matter. The fact of the matter is...
But like I said, see, you understand people own themselves, and how you relate to them, you have to understand that they own themselves, they own their rights to their body, to their
I agree.
So,
but why do they? But if it's a fact that they own themselves, it's not it's not a product of the social relationship.
Yes, it is a product. Yes, it is. We understand it through a social relationship. Yes, we do.
But why? There is no. So within that social relationship, there is nothing within that social relationship.
No, I'm saying there's no morality outside of the social relation. In other words, all humans are in a social relation. I'm not saying that it's limited to just you. When I talked before about what a woman does to her child, I'm saying that axiology starts with the person themselves and then radiates out in how it relates to other things. It doesn't.
But so let's say Nazi Germany, or when the Holocaust, or Japanese kind of military Japan won World War II. And that they decided, they kind of started breeding Japanese women to rape them.
Yeah, but
in that society, but I'm running on with trying to run with what you're going, and that you hopefully you can correct me in a sec, because I'm not imparting to you the belief that rape is right. But what?
No, I don't. People own their own bodies. No, people own their own bodies. They own themselves.
Why do they own their own bodies?
Because we acknowledge them in the social relationship. That this is what it is. It's a reality.
The point of this thought experiment is that they don't acknowledge it. That's the whole point of the thought experiment.
And people don't acknowledge it. That just means they're acting unethical. That doesn't.
Exactly, but they're acting within the social relationships we got.
No, they're violating them. They're not holding the.
So you're saying it, but you're okay. So I think.
In other words, to get you to understand. So psychologically, we get sick. It's very common, or get PTSD or problems when we see people hurt. This is an actual fact.
Sure.
Right? Yeah. So it causes us ill when people get raped, when people get hurt. It doesn't just hurt them, which we are violating them. It hurts us. And why it hurts.
Nazi Germany that Jews are alive, and so the fact that there is hurt isn't the matter. The fact is, so what's required here is we need a truth here. That we don't just need social relationships, because we can have all the conditions you need without facts on your view. We can have social relationships. We can have all the emotions.
No, but I'm saying is it is a fact that we are affected in social relationship. Period.
Oh, great, wonderful. But let's say I change the social relationships such that everyone, in fact, I can make this wonderful. Everyone else in the Japanese, in the kind of dictatorship of Japan, watches Chinese women get raped, and everyone's happy. Everyone is loving it. Now, in that situation, I know you would say that China...
It's still wrong, because I'm telling you, I have a degree in psychology. They're still being affected. People can...
But they're affected in a way that is good.
No, they're not. Wrong. Because how we're built. We are a social species. We're a protecting species. Evolutionarily, it doesn't matter. You can't get outside of it. Your thought experiment is denying the reality of evolution, that we are a social species. We are affected.
So it's an evolutionary development. So that's what you're saying now. Okay, so we've got lots of evolutionary species. For example, I have a wonderful book here called The Black Hole Companion to Natural Theology. Jonathan will know it well. Many others will know it well. I will find you.
I don't know it well.
Do you know it well?
No, I don't.
Okay, so if you're interested in philosophy and meta-ethics, for people generally, I highly recommend The Black Hole Companion to Natural Theology. I think it's one of the best. And I can find you many atheists who will agree with me. For example, Luke Newhouse, who you might know. So he's the kind of...
I don't know.
Okay, so he's the chair of it. He ran a website called Common Sense Atheism, which is an atheist website. So Mark D. Linville talks in his chapter on the moral argument, says that if, quoting Darwin, if men were reared under precisely the same conditions as hive bees, there can hardly be a doubt that our unmarried females would, like the worker bees, think it a sacred duty to kill their brothers, and mothers would strive to kill their fertile daughters, and no one would think of interfering. So we have evolutionary development. The evolutionary development entails that men kill it doesn't even matter, but there is killing.
Yeah, but so the first war, talking about killing, the first war archaeologically, I think, is like 12,000 years ago, and I think in Kenya.
Okay.
Something like that. Anyways, the point is not, we've been around for 200,000 years, and evolutionary before that, all kinds of hominids. The point is that there hasn't been the thing, because there has been care.
But that's contingent on reality, and let's say, and the point that...
Well, what does that mean, contingent on reality? What are you saying?
Let me just make my point in there. The point is that, so for example, Stephen Jay Gould, agnostic, makes the point that the evolutionary process is radically contingent, and that if an asteroid had moved differently, for example, we'd have had a very different evolutionary process, and the belief that...
Okay, but the fact that we could have been different, evolutionary, is not involved in what I'm saying. I'm saying what we are. This is what we are.
So the point
this is a fact of what we are. It's like saying black could be white. Well, sure. I mean, if the sky was different...
That I have what Mark Linville talks about is he talks about Darwinian counterfactuals, and the point is that...
See, but Darwinian, evolutionary... Darwin, whenever you say Darwin, my mind wants to discount you as being not credible. Darwin's theory is not evolution. Evolution is not Darwin. Darwin is back in 18-something. To keep using that word is to violate reason.
It's not about Darwin. The point is that this is not about Darwin. That it's called Darwinian because Darwin made this point.
Christians like to say Darwin so they can try to attach way back at the beginning.
This is not about that. Let's call it an evolutionary counterfactual.
That's fine.
Okay, evolutionary counterfactual is that we're raised like bees. Bees want to kill their so wives killing their husbands, mothers killing their daughters. That's the counterfactual. Is that okay? Are you happy with that on your axiological atheism?
Is it? Would I be fine with bees killing? I don't understand what you're trying to say. If we evolutionary were born to kill.
Yeah. So we're evolutionarily, we are the kind of possible world that's different. This isn't the world we live in. The different world that we live in mothers want to kill their daughters, wives want to kill their husbands. That's the world we live in. Is that okay on axiological atheism?
Well, axiological atheism is realistic. It goes with the world we have. It doesn't, because you could say there's worlds where there's no morality. And so hold on. You could say there's also a world where morality is not even there. And we never invented morality. We never invented Jesus. We never invented gods. I mean, we could think of all kinds of possible worlds. But it doesn't matter. No. You can think of possible worlds where there's no such morality.
What philosophy does is that we look at thought.
Don't try to talk down to me like I don't understand philosophy. He said, this is what philosophy does. I understand. See, right there, you know that's wrong.
No, I don't.
It's not wrong?
I'm appealing to a transcendent standard.
You said this is what philosophy does, like I'm a freaking child.
No. Okay, so let's. I don't want this to become me. The you in looking that I'm talking down to you. I don't want to do it like that. So the point that I'm trying to make is that there is an evolutionary thing. This very plausible. And what the point that's being made there that is contingent.
In other words, if we were born as dolphins, would I think that there's axiology? No, because we wouldn't have a mind that understands ethics.
Right.
And if we didn't understand ethics, I wouldn't, of course, have an ethical standard. So your argument, but hold on, just what you said, right? You said bees. So if we were dolphins or bees and we didn't understand morality, would I feel like there's morality? Why would I? We don't understand morality. So you're saying in a world without morality, how would I understand morality? I wouldn't.
So I'm saying, okay, so let's try and make this clear. This other world where we're raised like bees.
Correct.
I'm not saying we're bees.
But are you saying that we cognitively have the intelligence of bees? Is that what you're saying?
No.
We have a normal morality? We totally understand?
We have cognitively, we have the brains we have.
But do we understand? Yeah, but dolphins have brains, do they not? Dolphins are intelligent.
Not the level that we do.
Right. So,
okay,
so do dolphins? Hold on a second. Do dolphins do moral actions?
No, because they don't have the brains we do.
Right. So if you tell me we're a thing that is like a bee, you're telling me that we don't have the moral understanding. If we don't have moral understanding, we don't have ethics. Thus, axiology doesn't mean anything.
No. So I'm saying that this other world. So I don't even have to appeal to bees here. I can appeal to people with big brains, and that's the point. That's the point of appealing to Japan and Nazi Germany, is that people have very big brains.
But people do understand morality, correct, and still kill. So people know things are right and wrong. Christians kill, torture. Christians rape. I'm not. Atheists do too. I'm not singling out Christians. I'm just making a point. That it is erroneous point to me because people, it takes a reasoning, a social understanding. If you lack that in another world, as you said, then yes, there's no axiology. I don't hold. Dolphins will rape people, will try to, and will actually rape other dolphins. Do I think it's actual rape? I think it's, to me, repugnant, but I certainly wouldn't take them to jail or try to,
I agree. So I'm trying to think how we move this forward. That in terms of, okay, so here would be one of my questions. I think one of the points I'd make is that it seems to me there are a multiplicity of social understandings. That would be what I'd want to make. That's the point of the Nanking rape. That's the point of Nazi Germany. There are a multiplicity of social systems.
Yeah.
One would be where
but there's not multiplicity of value. The Germans knew that it was wrong. They did it anyways.
So let me just get to the end of this one. There are multiplicities of value. Why is our value the right one, and why is the other value over there the wrong one? And I think this would be really helpful.
I don't know what you're asking exactly. If you're asking why my morality is different than what, a dog? Because to me, all people have a cognitive understanding. Correct? All people have a cognitive understanding. And all people that have a cognitive understanding, we hold the same standard.
They don't. That's the point. That's the whole point. That's the whole point of that. That's the whole point of Nazi Germany.
No, but Nazi Germany was doing something in violation, and they knew it was in violation. They didn't care.
That's the point. That's the whole point.
They didn't care. And people got a lot of mental problems from it. People emotional problems from it.
I agree, but that doesn't mean they were wrong.
Yes, it does. Yes, it hurt. It hurt.
Why does it mean they were wrong?
It hurts. It hurts society and it hurts them. Yes, it does.
I can make worlds where Adolf Hitler loved his life. He committed suicide.
It doesn't matter if he personally did.
That I can get Jack the Ripper loved it. I can give you murderers who love their lives.
It doesn't matter if they loved it. It matters in the social. It doesn't. You're not a unit into yourself. And the fact that you can do whatever you want as long as you like it. I never said that.
I'm not saying you did. But the point is that if you want to say that there are kind of different levels here. One is the kind of level that you.
Well, actually, there. In fact, even in the book New. I can't remember. There's a new Axiology for psychology. I can't remember what it's called.
Right.
Lil and Pelham. Anyways, he talks about Nazi Germany, and in fact, Axiology was invented by a person whose family was Jewish, and yeah, so he did it distinctly. Wanted to figure out how, about your issue, how was it that these people were able to see other humans as not valuable? That is why he got into this whole thing and started to begin with, was because of actually wanting to, establish how do we do ethics? Why do people value and not value?
Okay.
And like I said, so I already told Derek, you weren't here, I think, that there's a neuroscience. I think it's called Asking the Central Question.
Cool.
And it's about neuroaxiology and how the brain, neurologists showed that the brain actually thinks in value structures. It's not we choose to. It's something we do. It's like how we choose one thing over another, how we evaluate one thing or another. It's what we're doing all the time.
Okay, so here's another question that I have. So, for example, Desmond Tutu, and giving an analogy, talks about how, for example, there's a man that he kind of, I'm sure you know Desmond Tutu, that he talked to, that he grew up in South Africa.
Is that the guy that ate people or something?
To the point that he made.
I mean,
for example,
Desmond Tutu. Maybe you should say again who that is.
So, okay, so he was the Archbishop of South Africa. So he grew up in apartheid South Africa, saw all the worst that happened. And the point there was that he made. He talked about, let's say we have a society where we discriminated against people based on the size of their nose.
No.
Now, they discriminate based on the size of their nose, so we think that's a really, really silly thing. And I agree, that's a really, really silly thing. But you're saying we discriminate based on whether people are human or not, or it might be something else, and in which case...
humans have the highest value. We also have the highest responsibility. That we're held accountable because we have cognitive understanding. And when we do, that's...
the most valuable thing, and that's because it doesn't even matter to my argument that whether it's based on our cognitive development or it's based on the fact we're able to experience pleasure or pain or a multiplicity.
Well, it's a multiplicity of things, I would say, why.
So
but
those things.
But like I said, we're held accountable directly related to our understanding and ability to process the relational involvement of ethics.
So so I'm not talking about accountability. Accountability, I'm probably in agreement with you. Now I'd have kind of other disagreements there. Let's not go down the rabbit trail. The important question I'm asking is about value, which you kind of talked about. So if it's about value, why is the fact X is a human being more valuable than the fact X has a big nose, or X is white, or X is a woman, or X is black, or all these kind of other things? We can have plenty of other.
Well, but we are the same. We're more the same. Chimpanzees are different than us. There's more variations of them than us. Why
aren't chimpanzees valuable? Why is it that X is a human being?
I do think that chimpanzees are close enough to a higher level of reasoning that they should be actually not treated the way they are. I think the same with dolphins, the same with elephants.
Okay, so why is X has reasoning valuable and X has a big nose not valuable?
I don't even know what you're trying to ask.
I'm trying to ask about what. So I'm trying to ask about.
No. See, but humans have innate value. It doesn't matter that they have facial features or it's innate value. It's innate, and how you behave is your extrinsic.
I can think of
it wouldn't have nothing to me. It means you have intrinsic value. Your nose size would mean nothing.
Social background, and that's a product of your evolutionary background, and that's the point. Is that you're not making an argument. You're asserting what you believe. Fine. We can believe lots of things, but
no. You're saying, what did you say I didn't do? I'm evolutionary. We're social beings. We're also evolutionary, more cognitive. We can actually understand ethics, and our responsibility comes from that understanding. Those that do not, even humans who do not understand this, we do not hold them accountable.
I agree. I'm completely in agreement with you.
But it's that ability. I told you, you just don't like the answer. Our ability to understand is the exact thing that gives us the value.
Where does that come from? Where is that ability to understanding value coming from?
The brain, emergent property of the brain.
But why is it that we get that? So, Britt, why is that we get that when there are kind of a million different ways our brains could have evolved, and we could have had brilliant ideas.
You're right. We could have been less evolved and been. But that means nothing. I feel like you're talking. It doesn't matter. If we were a dolphin and we had not evolved to where we're at, then we wouldn't have the same value.
That's an assertion. There is no justification for that point.
What is
absolutely none.
Really?
Yes.
Where
is the justification for that point? I can quote you a million people on this. Where is the justification for that point that we can have that brains should entail that we have moral intuition? Where?
That our brains should entail moral. Our brains do entail moral intuition.
Why does it entail we have right ones?
What?
Why does having a big brain entail that we should have correct moral intuitions?
See, but I feel like you're doing a categorical error. You're saying one thing, the brain, it is a fact that our brain is this way. You're saying, why should it be this way? I don't know why it should be this way. No, but hold on. You said, why should a big brain matter? It doesn't matter to me. Our brains are shrinking. But it does actually, I said it's the quality of the brain, because even humans, it's the quality of our brain being able to process and understand moral ethics. You're saying, but why does it have to be a big brain?
Why is it that Adolf Hitler over there so why do you think that Adolf Hitler was wrong and we are right?
I already told you, because humans have innate value and an understanding of assessment of value. No, listen real quick.
J.L. Mackie, very fine philosopher, atheist philosopher, Arif Arquette, atheist philosopher, non-moral objectivists. They are very, very clever people. They say that morals don't exist. I say morals do exist. Why are they wrong and you're right?
Because I do it in an axiological way. Formal axiology, I already studied it.
In an axiological way, right?
What's that? Because that's how our brains process. It is right because the science backs it up. The science backs it up. It's not a philosophy limited. The science backs it up.
He appeals to science the whole time.
What?
That's his whole idea. He appeals to science. Lots of people can appeal to science. I can appeal to science.
But formal axiology has the science behind it.
I appeal to science the whole time. I can appeal to evolutionary arguments against moral reasoning. I can appeal to the fine-tuning argument. I can appeal to the
and someone could do the same thing to you. So you're saying, I don't know what your point is. If people can always disagree. So,
yeah.
And?
Right, so
I know, but that's not an argument. And? People can disagree. And? What does that mean?
But I'm making a point about evidence, and I'm making a point
about evidence, too. I said, neurologically, we know that the brain processes this way. You're saying, well, why is it a big brain? It could be a small brain. That we know the brain of the human processes a certain way. It's evolutionarily happened that way. Other animals do not have it. They're not held accountable. And if we were like them, if we were a dolphin, we would not be held accountable.
Maybe advance this. Neurologically, we advance a certain way. For example, Darwin. I'm not I'm not appealing to him because I'm kind of being Mr.
No, I said when you said Darwinism, as if it's something science still is using.
So I'll talk about Darwin. And so Darwin, one of the points he made is that why should we trust a monkey's brain? That because there's kind of random monkey's brain over there could have all sorts of false beliefs. That just because it's a monkey's brain doesn't mean it's valuable. We're kind of slightly developed chimpanzees, kind of that. Let's call it that. If we're slightly developed chimpanzees, and chimpanzees have a load of beliefs, and we're like, why should we trust chimpanzees? The fact that we've got this certain neurological development, why does that mean we're going to get to certain amazing moral truths that?
Well, I don't think that we get to amazing moral truths, but it is a fact that we're able to process and understand social behavior because of our ability to have the cognitive things to understand it. I mean, do we have biases and stuff? Do we make errors? Absolutely. I never said it was absolute or perfect.
No, I'm not saying you do. But I think that
I believe words. I believe in kind of like moral realism. But I don't believe in that is not distinctly moral objectivism, as you're saying. I do believe there is objective things that we can figure out, but that's not a universal state of things.
Okay, so I think that, for me, it has to be universally right that there are certain moral facts, and that that's not a thing of me being a Christian. That someone like Eric Wieland.
Yeah, but are you choosing that because you like it, or are you choosing that because you find that as a reality in the world?
I'm choosing that the deliberative and indispensability argument, and Michael Hume's argument on this subject, and Michael and Boyd's argument on the subject, and I can quote you Sturgeon's argument on the subject, and I can give you the resurrection argument. There are plenty of arguments I can give you on moral realism, and that's why I believe moral realism is true, because it's the best explanation of the data we have, and that's why I believe it's true. Now, I suspect we're going around in circles.
Yeah, but that's not absolute morality.
Yeah, it is.
No. If you know philosophy, if you know philosophy, don't tell me that moral realism, objective morality, and absolute morals is all the same thing.
So we might be using slightly different terminological vocabulary here. That's not me trying to be deceitful. So in terms of, what would be your distinction between absolute morality and objective morality? And I'm not asking that to be.
Well, absolute would be that it never changes. Period.
Okay, so in
other words, it wouldn't change if a child did it. It wouldn't change because it's absolute.
I don't think you will find anyone who believes that. In which case, I'm an objectivist, and everyone else, every Christian here you will find will be an objectivist, and you won't find I think I can probably.
Well, no, Christians will say it's not you, but Christian. I have a debate with a guy that said that he believes in objective moral truths, that are 100% true all the time to all people in all ways. And I've definitely heard that on TV before. I believe our God's morality is the same, all things to all people in all ways.
Okay. Let me perhaps just bring in John, because he's been waiting to speak.
Let me just say kind of a couple of things before I go. If you're interested in this area, have a look at Mark Linville's The Moral Argument. Have a look at an article by Sharon Street, A Darwinian Dilemma for Realist Theories of Value. Have a look at William Lane Craig's stuff on the subject. Have a look at HBO, and particularly have a look at.
I have a question.
I'm saying something, and this is not for you. This is about the Christian's interest in the subject.
Okay.
Have a look at an article by Peter S. Williams called "Can Moral Objectivism Do Without God?" That's brilliant, and what's brilliant about it is not necessarily the article, but at the end of the article there are about 1 million references to that, to brilliant stuff on moral objectivism and Christianity that anyone interested in this area should have a look at. So I will try and post that on the chat. That's a really, really good thing. Thank you, Damien, for chatting. Really interesting to chat. All the best with your future.
Yeah.
Thank you, Josh. Let me go over to John. He's been waiting to talk for a bit. So
okay.
Go ahead.
I'm on?
You're on.
Oh, great.
How you doing?
Pleasure to speak to you, Damien. Hey, Damien.
Hey.
I'm an American like you.
Right on.
Let's start this off. Just so I get a little clear on this, your views about, say, animals versus us, whereas a chick killing other chicks, that wouldn't be wrong. It would, of course, be wrong for us to kill other humans, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so
I think what you said, because it sounded like you said a chick. You mean like a bird, correct?
Yeah, bird.
Well, I want to make sure because
yeah,
I mean,
not 1950s here.
Well, I don't know how different parts of the United States, right? I'm from the West Coast. You could be from the South. You could call women chicks. So I'm gonna make sure I clarify that I'm not saying.
Oh man, if I did that, my wife would beat me. Okay, so of course, then right or wrong is relative to the species, right?
Well, right or wrong is relative to the understanding of and the cognitive ability to understand what is right and wrong. Not just the species, because what I was to say is not just the species. There's humans that are babies; they don't understand. There's humans that have cognitive, from an accident or from a brain aneurysm, or could be from, born that way, just with a defect of the mind that they can't cognitively understand. I mean, people get strokes and all of a sudden.
Relative to the cognitive ability.
It's what?
Relative to the cognitive ability.
Yeah, I'm fine. Relatively with that, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So now, let's go to God for a second.
Okay.
God, say, is superlative above us, but let's go we'll even kick out the superlative. Supernatural. That atheists can agree with. Atheists can say God is supernatural. It's just that he doesn't exist, right?
Well, no, there is no supernatural is what I would say. You're claiming, or it's claimed that there is something called the supernatural. Thus, God is claimed to be the highest form of that quality.
Okay. But if there is a God, which you deny, he would be supernatural. Because if he was just a human, he wouldn't be a God, right?
Correct. A human would not be a God. That's true.
Okay.
Under your definition, right? Yeah.
So now, moral monster. We already had it relative to cognitive abilities. Cognitive ability, were you to accept his existence, would be different and beyond ours. Now,
right, which would actually, but I know, but that actually would give him more, not ability to do what he wants, but actually more responsibility. Just like we don't tell a dog that they've done something wrong or a child, the level of the arch goes up.
Sure, but you wouldn't be in a position to judge.
Wrong.
Well,
no. If I can't judge, then I can't judge morality in the world. If I can't judge morality in the world, then I can't judge at all.
Well, certainly you would say you already made it relative to the cognitive ability.
Yes, and God would have more cognitive ability, so him doing an error in that behavior
would be beyond yours, right?
Yeah, higher than mine.
Okay.
As stated.
What he's doing wouldn't be beyond your understanding, correct? Following from what you said earlier.
Is he doing something beyond my understanding?
Well,
because
my actions.
We understand. Well, let's put it this way: if your statement is true as an axiologist, and that I would do things that I don't know, but God does, then that would mean I'm not responsible. That's what it would mean. That God cannot hold me responsible to understand His mind.
On your acts.
No, God cannot hold me accountable for understanding things beyond, not as much as high as Him. Then God would have to understand, like a child. You understand, okay, they understand a little bit right and wrong, and you do kind of say, hey, no, it has to be relative to the mind. No, you said God's more than me, and I don't understand God, but if I don't understand God, then God can't judge me. That's how it works. Because same as a child, when you understand, the child doesn't really understand, you have to put that into the context.
I'll tell you what, let's start with a homey example, okay? This morning, my cat took a crap on my kitchen rug.
I know. Mine does that once in a while. It's irritating.
Annoying. Now I know. I am proof positive that my cat does not have, regardless of its opinion, the same equal understanding that I do. I
agree. Thus, I don't punish my cat. I clean up the shit, and then I try to make sure the litter box is clean so that it doesn't do it again. But if it does it again, I just clean it up again because I understand I am more, it doesn't. So I don't...
I'm sorry, I gave it a swap. Not a
swap?
But it was a swap.
Oh, I wouldn't do that. The cat doesn't understand. I wouldn't do that.
That's pretty smart. I think he does.
But I mean, so hold on. I like that. Okay, so if a cat deserves a swap, what level of stuff would you do related to the cat? What other standard would you hold the cat to? So,
I would hold it to a
so if
lesser
it bites you, do you stab it?
Analogy, likewise, God to us would hold us to the same standard, to a more diminished standard than what
he would hold himself to, correct? He would hold himself. He would have to hold himself to a higher standard and hold us to a lesser standard if we didn't know.
It would be to a different standard.
Lesser, way lesser. Well, we're not worthy. Way lesser. He would have to hold himself to a higher standard.
Higher or lower. The reason I'm avoiding it, and let me finish, is I don't want to pretend that I have any understanding of higher or lower, more understanding or lesser understanding, so I'm just keeping it to a different understanding. For remember, what I said about...
So you're not saying it's a higher or lower understanding with your cat?
I use that only euphemistically with you.
You know what? I like you because I can feel the honesty of your intelligence. Your mind doesn't even want to say it because you know that what I just said is a poignant point.
Don't try that.
Yes, I can see it, dude. I can see it. You don't want us because are you saying that your cat is just different, not lower?
Let's put it this way. I will say the cat is a lower intelligence.
Exactly. And then you would have to say that you believe we're lower than God, right?
I would say the cat has different things that's allowed to do than what I'm allowed to do.
Definitely. If you crapped in your house, that would be bad.
That's not more or less restrictive, right?
More descriptive? What are you trying to say?
E-S-E, restrictive. I'm allowed to do more than a cat.
Yes, and you're held more responsible than a cat. Yeah.
And the cat holds me pretty accountable.
Well, the cat would hold you more accountable than probably a dog would, because a dog's loving people that hit them. So cats generally.
But the idea of accountability has nothing to do with higher or lower. The cat holds me to a pretty high level of accountability. I have to clean his kitty litter. I have to feed him. I have to feed him at 5 a.m. even though I'm asleep. You got the idea. So that has nothing to do with greater intelligence, higher level, nothing. Now, let's go on to something else. Something that you're on the same standard of. Okay? Hitler. Because we talked about Hitler a bunch. Hitler's a human being like you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
What makes you right and Hitler wrong? Although I think you are right in your judgment than Hitler. So I'm not calling you Hitler.
Yeah. No, I didn't.
Why would your opinion be better than his?
Because I am not violating ethics and he is. I hold the standard that every person has value and I understand they own themselves. You own yourself. I can't violate you.
How's your standard of value beyond his?
He's not valuing. Of course it's beyond his. He is violating the value. He's not acknowledging other people. He was treating other people bad. He was killing them. He does not hold them to a standard of value. How is mine better? Because I'm understanding the actuality that humans have an ability to understand and that we're a social creature and that we have value. And then I operate under that understanding, which people do without thinking. Morality is not something that if we don't talk about it, it doesn't happen. It happens even if we don't talk about it. It's emergent.
Let's allow Hitler to think for a second. Okay.
Hitler to think? I wish he would have, really.
Yeah, I wish
he was a better artist. I wish he was a better artist, then he never would have been the tyrant that he probably was.
One can only dream. But, however, let's go, and no correcting history, so he was there. I'm still trying to understand on what basis. Because he's in a social network, too. And, in fact, there were a lot of smart
Okay, so how about this? Hitler killed how many? compared to
Oh,
what
I
God
agree.
killed the whole earth. No one has killed more than the flood, if the flood was true.
Absolutely.
And I just think, even if
what you have to kill is wrong, and I agree with you. I want to know why, as a human being, and I agree with you. Why is our view on killing right and Hitler's wrong? Kind of like...
Because he is violating the fact that we do understand, and we are held accountable to that understanding. The same way we don't hold a dog if they kill someone, we don't hold them the same standard, same as a monkey. Well, a cow, sits on somebody and kills a child. We don't take them to court, and then, actually, don't take that back. I think it was the 1700s, they did actually take animals to court and try them but it was just ridiculous. But
I imagine it was.
Maybe 1600s. Anyways, it did happen.
Let me make an adjustment on Hitler for you.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's have it be that, like the cat, we are in fact of a higher moral and better understanding than Hitler. Why, then, should we condemn Hitler? For he was too mentally deficient by the definitions that you've laid out.
If Hitler was insane, then we would lock him up.
Let's say it's not criminal insanity.
Then he's held accountable because he knows.
Insanity is...
In other words, we know that the general population has the cognitive, especially adults, has the cognitive ability to process what is good and wrong or right behavior in a social interaction. We know this. It doesn't even take laws that we know this.
Why is he left out of this? Come to think of it,
I'm not leaving him out. How did I leave him out? But like I said, how is it that you leave God out? If you think that, and I agree that it's bad to kill people, how when God kills the entire earth, how is that not seen as any kind of bad? That's totally good.
Different realm. He's above our realm.
So if you're above, like you're the human and the cat, you are held to a higher standard. God should be held to a standard. There is no standard. Whatever God does, no problem. God, to me, it's
not for me to understand God's standard. However, the value that he set before us, we follow. I'll give you an example.
But anyways, isn't it almost time to do? Isn't it supposed to be 3 hours and then it's done? Anyways, I'm just wondering.
Oh, this is a good question. I don't.
Well, because I'm starting to get hungry.
Oh man,
so not trying to not talk to you, but is that correct?
No, it's all good. It's all good.
3 hours is a long time.
Yeah,
and I applaud it.
We tend to be flexible, so some sessions go maybe 2 hours, some go to 3, some go more. So it depends on the availability of the speaker.
Oh well, I don't want to do 4 hours. You said 3 hours. I'm getting hungry.
Yeah, that's all right. There's only so much Hitler anyone can take.
I don't like Hitler. Yeah, I think I think he was a moral monster himself. Yeah.
Okay.
You are welcome, Damien, to either continue or to leave or whatever you want to do.
Like I said, I'm getting hungry. It's 3 hours, dude. I'm done.
Cool.
Not against talking to you. I'm just.
No, it's all good. It's all good.
You just had to be the last person. Does the other who's hosting this? What's his name again? I forgot.
Me, Jonathan.
Yeah, Jonathan. Do you have any question you want to ask real quick before I go?
I have quite a few, but probably not ones that we can do in a few minutes.
Oh yeah, because like I said, I'm hungry.
Okay.
I waited to eat lunch because I thought it was going to be just a late lunch, but yeah. And I drank like 3 or 4 drinks.
Yeah. I just out of interest before you go, can I ask you just I touched on this a little bit at the start, and then other people wanted to come into questions, so we went off the topic. But on the case for theism, as opposed to a particular branch of theism, such as Christian theism, which is I and most people in this room adopt, what would be your argument on what would be your view on the classical arguments that are offered in support of theism, such as the cosmological arguments, the fine-tuning arguments, and so on?
Well, cosmological, you mean like the Big Bang, like what started the universe? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Well, I would say simply that we don't know. We know that it goes back to a certain point, and then we don't know. And it's not really even one point, because it's actually it's so hot when they view it, they can't tell what happened. So I would just say, well, all we know is there's nothing supernatural until then, and I don't know what happens before then or after then. I certainly wouldn't make up something called God. I mean, put it this way, like I told you, I'm an axiological atheist. You show me that there was proof of a God, like have him call me on the phone. Just kidding. But I would believe. I will never worship because I find the God, real or fake, to be a harmful proposition that hurts ethics, that ruins human value, that removes worth to me. So it really doesn't. It doesn't even matter if a God was real. Because I'm an axiological atheist, I find it to be a harmful thing. So it doesn't. I don't believe. But even if you were able to show me and prove to me, okay, then there's a God, and now I hate a real being. Okay, it wouldn't. I wouldn't become a Christian.
Sure, but it seems, I mean, most, if not all, atheists I've spoken to who've come from a religious background, such as yourself,
yes,
who've also had breastfeed on before, and others, other ex-Christians who become atheists.
Uh-huh.
And every one of those individuals, and every one that I've talked to, has gone straight from Christian theism, or whatever particular theism that they adopted, to atheism, rather than going from Christian theism to bare theism to atheism, which is what I would have expected.
Well, I would say that you probably haven't dealt with that many atheists. I fight all the time with atheists that are pantheists or deists or have vague theism or somethingism. When I call somethingism, it's they don't even know if it's a God exactly. There's probably some energy. Oh, I talk to people all the time, but I understand I have thousands of atheists on my page. Thousands I deal with. So I mean, I have like 8,000, almost 9,000 on one. I have like 20,000 on another. I mean, I have a lot of different people I'm interacting with. So I'm sure. So just so you know, there are some that, in fact, the Pew Research. If you look at Pew Research, the 7 statistics on atheists, it says I think it's 3% of atheists, claimed atheists, say that there either is a God or a universal spirit, but they're talking about what you're talking about. So. I mean, I have heard that. It's not real common, but yeah, I've heard that.
Okay, coming back to the issue of cosmology, so you acknowledge that the universe began to exist at a point in the finite past, right?
No, I acknowledge that we can't look past a certain point. I don't know that it existed. Everything goes to that point, but we don't know. It could have existed before that. It could have just been a bubble. I don't, where the universe, birthed into another universe. It could have been a black hole. I don't know what it is. I'm not claiming to know.
Independent of the scientific arguments for a cosmic beginning, there are also various philosophical reasons to think that you cannot traverse an infinite number of temporal units.
But like I said, we don't know that it isn't something past that. So a philosophical would have to acknowledge that we don't know. So guess what I say? I don't know, and I don't claim to know. I certainly wouldn't add something and say that it has to be something of a property that we do not see, do not know, do not have any tangible source or to validate.
But you acknowledge that time cannot be eternal. Time cannot be infinite.
Yeah, but time is not as we know it, because it can be actually, if you go around the Earth a certain way, you can actually lose a little time. When it comes to things like black holes, time kind of stops or pauses or stretches or whatever. I don't know the whole thing, but it's certainly our understanding of what time is like E equals mc squared is energy, and time. That these things are related to each other. It's not the way we try to think of it, like some timeline. It's not directly in all areas of how it relates, as I understand it. I'm not saying I'm a scientist.
Right. But the universe cannot have been here forever. Otherwise, that would require traversing.
You don't know that. No, you don't know that. I don't know that. You do not know all properties of what the universe can and cannot do. I don't know that. Maybe it can, maybe it can't. I don't know that.
Philosophically, you cannot get an infinite
No,
number.
but philosophical is a mental idea or thing of it.
There is no such thing as an actual infinite.
You don't know that. You don't know that there's not an actual infinite.
Yes, I do.
Okay. You know.
There's no such
Scientifically
thing
proven, you know.
Yeah, and that's because it results in mathematical absurdities.
Yeah, but hold on a second. Mathematics does not. Mathematics, we agree, is a useful tool because it seems to match the stuff. But that doesn't mean that mathematics is the universe. It is simply like saying the map that we use to drive to someone's house is the land. No, it is useful, and it might even be very accurate. But to act like it is the thing, mathematics does not do something. It tries to define what is already there.
But it can explain what is possible and what is not
So
possible.
far that we've known, mathematics seems to adhere to what we believe of reality. That does not mean it is an absolute fact. That it proves it has done a good job at explaining things.
You don't think mathematics is an absolute fact?
I think mathematics is a tool that we use to understand the universe, to understand things, to quantify. It is not a real world fact. It is a resemblance of fact. If I say there's two things, I'm relating to the reality of the world of there being two separate things.
So if you take the view that the universe has existed for an infinite number of seconds, then that leads you to a mathematical absurdity. Imagine, for example, that you have an infinite array of numbers from 1 to infinity. Imagine you were to take away all of the numbers 3 or greater, you're left with 1 and 2. That's two numbers. Now imagine you were to take away all the even numbers from that infinite stock of numbers. Now you're still got an infinite number. So it would require that infinity minus infinity equals 2 and infinity minus infinity equals infinity, which is a mathematical absurdity. So that's one reason.
But like I said, mathematics is not reality. Mathematics is a description of. It is a contemplation of how to assess. That's like saying that gasoline is your car. Sure, it gets you around, but it is not actually the car. But anyways, like I said, I'm gonna go because I'm hungry.
Okay, sure, I understand.
So, and obviously we can just keep going on and on because we don't agree. So
yeah, we should definitely organize a formal debate on one of these days.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep. All right. I'll take care.
All right. Bye. What do I just close it down?
Yeah. Thanks for joining us.
All right. Bye.